don't, we get in a little bit of trouble. And who else do we have? My buddy Swamp Dweller. There he is. Look at this. On this day in 1995, Dave tried to backflip over a Sasquatch on rollerblades. Never forget. It was a grave, gray day, man. Grave, gray day. Open-minded clarity, rooted in gorgeous sacredness. How are you? Thanks for coming on in. $5,900. Gray Troll, good to see you. And there's Bob Burkins, everybody. He'll low-five you. And the gorgeous Jenny, Richard Elmore, nice to have you back. Truth Entertainment, always a pleasure to have you here. Greco, Opa to you, my friend. And there's Drew Morris, the gorgeous Jessica McCreary, and the lovely and talented Kira is back. Magnus Zerum, good to see you, my friend. Nin Pyrenus, how are you? Good to have you here. And Oob to Joe's Main, you've got aliens. We're running out of time here. Can he do it, people? Can he do it? Let's take a look here. Project Blue Book, good to see you, buddy. The Gorgeous Oracles and Beyond. Who else do we have? Why is this taking so long? I don't know. But we're getting there. Awesome Ann Palmer. Nice to have you here. And, oh my gosh, I'm starting to panic here. Can we do it? Let's see here. No, we cannot. I'll finish it off in a bit. Get your horns up. Here comes Bumblefoot. From the mountains of central British Columbia to you listening around the world, this, my friends, is Spaced Out Radio. I am your host, Dave Scott, sitting in the captain's chair of SOR headquarters. We welcome you to tonight's show on our terrestrial affiliates around North America, digitally on TalkStream Live, Revolution Radio, and KPNL. All of our archives are free. Go to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do old Davey the favor, hit that subscribe button. You can follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on Instagram, Spaced Out Radio Show. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to Bumblefoot and reading up on Captain Shirk's SOR Newswire. Tonight's show is brought to you by Chive Charities. Help make the world 10% happier by visiting Chive Charities today. You can find them on our website. It is always a great time when we have the lovely and talented Varla Ventura here on Spaced Out Radio. Varla is one of the top authors in North America when it comes to the dark side of the cryptids, whether it's mermaids, whether it's banshees, little Pookas running through the forest. Varla is on top of everything when it comes to that, including everything from witches to vampires and evil spells that go along with it. Her website, varlaventura.net, and we always appreciate Varla coming on in. Varla, how are you?
Hello. Thank you for having me back. I'm wonderful. It's spooky season, so feeling good.
I've been battling a throat issue the last few days.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
Actually, I heard that the other night when I was listening in, so
yeah,
let me know.
Well, it just kind of sucks. If I'm all of a sudden like, I can't talk.
I'll just make up a story.
You just make up a story.
Yeah.
By the way,
you give me the signal, I'll just go.
By the way, thank you so much for this lovely Varla Ventura hat.
Oh, you are so welcome.
I love your new logo. I really do.
Thank you. Here's the mug. Just,
I love it. I love it. You know, this is your favorite time of the year, Halloween,
yes,
as it is for many in the spooky field and non-spooky field. What do you love about this time of year?
Besides the fact that I can get a gold skeleton at Target, pretty great. There's a great energy. I mean, there's something around me. There's all kinds of, the trees are changing color, and I have this one huge maple tree, and it just basically turns my entire living room Halloween orange this time of year. And there's just this kind of vibrant energy. I do like the darkness, so it doesn't bother me that it's getting darker earlier. I know that for some people that can be a bit of a struggle. I like the late summer twilight, just fine. I don't have a problem with that. That's a different time. But kind of going into this time with it's just getting darker earlier, and it's starting to get quite cold here. I had quite a scramble today because it's freezing overnight, and I have quite a few things growing in my poison garden that I hadn't harvested yet, and so I was rather hurriedly trying to gather things and string them up and keep them away from the pets and find a place to dry them, and I was just completely ill prepared.
Hold on a second.
Even though I knew it was coming.
Hold on. What are you doing with a poison garden?
I mean, you keep your friends close and your enemies closer. Is that what they say? Don't like my neighbors. No.
Remind me never to upset you.
It's not. It's poison and medicinal in its own way. I like to grow rare medicinal herbs, many of which are considered toxic to pets and humans in large doses. So poison. I don't have anything that will kill you upon touch. But I do like to grow, especially things that are difficult to find and, that I can use primarily just in magical work. It's what I tend to use them for. I have a tremendous amount of wormwood. It's growing mad in my garden. That's Artemisia absinthium, and it's the main ingredient in absinthe, which I actually don't really care for absinthe that much, but I really like Artemisia. I like to use it in other ways. And so I just, I just a couple years ago, I just thought I've got just enough space here. My son's old enough. He's not going to just go up and chew on a random branch. And I know some people might say that's irresponsible. Something might come wandering by and chew and dig up my beds. And I mean, that's what you get for digging up my beds.
There has to be a price to pay.
Yeah.
In Varla's yard.
Yeah. You'd be amazed how many common plants are actually quite toxic, not only to pets, but to humans. I mean, there's a lot of things we have in our own homes every day, house plants, really common garden plants that have some pretty intense toxins in them. So I find that interesting. It's not always the things that are the most obvious. So, and then my rule is I do baby some things through the winter, but my rule is generally if it cannot survive the winter here, which has been a real rude awakening for me coming from the San Francisco Bay Area where there is no winter. If it can't survive the winter here, I don't plant it in my garden because I can't fight the elements. I don't have it in me.
Well,
so
for everybody to know what kind of mother Varla is, she lets her son be a goaltender in hockey.
Yeah. Oh, hockey season just started. Yeah, we just finished tryouts. It was intense. Yeah.
My son is he's
is he in Might or what do you?
No, up here they changed it all. Like he would be the equivalent of novice or mites down there. Now they brought in this soccer crap of U9,
Oh, they do that here with the girls, which I find irritating. Yeah.
Another reason to fire the Hockey Canada president. God, I can't stand him. Tom Rennie needs to be fired. It's just ruined Hockey Canada. Anyways, that's another day, another topic. But your son's having fun?
Oh, yeah. The tryouts were stressful. This was the first year. So the second level is, so you have mites is kind of like the beginnings and then squirt. So this is his second year in squirt. And, it was an intense try. He jumped up 2 levels last year. So I think he was hoping to jump a level and he didn't, he stayed even, but, there's only there's not very many spots for goalies. So it can be a little bit more competitive, but yeah, he loves it. He loves it. What can I say? I mean, he wanted to try it. He tried it. And he's actually got a coach this year that he had 2 years ago who kind of introduced him to the goaltending. So yeah, he's a tendy.
Oh,
it's a really stressful thing as a parent. I mean, watching your kid play is kind of stressful anyway, but the goaltender is such a high stress like position. And, I don't sit with the other parents. I stand kind of down at the other end, just like white knuckling it the whole time. So it's intense. Real fun. I mean, honestly, I didn't know much about hockey before my son wanted to start playing, and then I just taught myself. So
it is beautiful, and I'm, good luck to him. Honestly, it's a tough it's a tough position. Your kid is already driving with 2 flat tires because he wants to get hit by hockey pucks. But you know what? He's playing a beautiful sport.
Protected by witchcraft. What can I say?
and you know what? I look at my son, and I'll change topics right after this. But I look at my son, and my son is just having a blast. He's not the best. He's one of the slower skaters out there. And I'll be honest with you, between you and me and our audience here, the coaching here is not very good. And I say that, and I realize, you're just being a hockey parent. But I say that because I spent...
But you played, right?
Well, I played, and then I spent 3 years as a hockey instructor. And I had 15 of my trainees go on to play pro, including in the NHL. And I kind of know what I was talking about. And also, when I was coaching hockey, I was being trained by one of the Vancouver Canucks assistant coaches back then, a guy named Mike Johnson, who had a head coaching stint in Pittsburgh and in LA. And he used to be the head coach for Team Canada. An incredible coach. And, I don't want to coach because I want to enjoy my son. I want to enjoy watching him.
Yeah.
But I mean, the big thing was, the other day he comes off the ice, and literally he's the last player off the ice, and my son's missing his front teeth and one on the bottom. Looks like.
Oh, you mean just because of his age?
Yeah, because of his age.
Very normal for a hockey player.
Yeah, but he had the biggest toothless grin on his face, and he comes off the ice, and the first thing he says was, "Hey, Dad, did you see how good I did today?" And I was just like, that's what it's about. I
know. It's just, yeah. He wants me to watch him at every practice. It's like, it's okay.
Absolutely.
Happy to.
Absolutely. You got to paint you got to get him a mask that's painted with all like horror movie stars.
Yeah, he just finally got like his like team wrap on his little helmet that's, he'll probably outgrow. It's such a small little helmet. So sweet.
All right. Before we get into the stories, do you know what happened 6 years ago today?
I don't. I don't.
6 years ago today, Marty McFly went back to the future.
Wow.
Went to 1985. Yeah.
Yeah, with that sweet vest. Wearing that sweet vest.
He returned today from 1985. 6 years ago. Marty McFly. And we still do not have flying DeLoreans running around.
It's a travesty, really. We have the technology for it. It's all about priorities.
Oh, I hear you.
We want to go back to the future.
All right. Let's get right to it tonight, as we got Varla Ventura here on the show, because you're going to be telling some spooky stories tonight. I already asked you what you love about Halloween, but what makes this time of the year so much more spooky?
Well, I mean, we kind of throw around the veil being thinner this time of year. That's a really, something that you'll hear a lot. And that is true. There are certain times of the year when it's said that the kind of space between this world and the unseen, invisible world is, it's just thinner. It's easier to kind of see and go to that other side. And those things are usually a good time to kind of try and make some changes. And they're tied to celebrations and harvests and all kinds of things. So this is the time of year when we're really kind of going deep down into the cave is basically what's happening. And what's coming out of the cave is everything from the other world. So, for example, in Celtic mythology, you would have right now the Morrigan, who is the wonderful like witch warrior goddess, who's often seen in the shape of a crow, or she'll have a crow on her shoulder, and she just basically like, moves the stone aside from in front of the cave, and out come flooding all manner of beastly things. Two-headed werewolves and vampires and ghosts and fairy creatures of all shapes and sizes. And so part of the celebration this time of year is, that you can kind of make contact with that other world and make contact with that darkness. And those creatures can kind of walk among us. And so it's both a time to have your guard up and also sort of look to look inward and think about the darkness within yourself and express that in some way. That's why we put on costumes. That's why, there's a lot of mythology that is tied to the reasons that we put on costumes and trick or treat, but ultimately what we're doing is we're about to go, we're turning the point of going into winter. Which is it's the end of the time of plenty and the beginning of the kind of the time of scarcity and coldness. So, but it's a great time of year. One of the things that I found out kind of in researching Halloween and Samhain, the Celtic Halloween tradition, were some of the roots of the classic things that we do, such as trick-or-treating. There was a time when children would actually go door to door and they would ask for coal or wood or a little money or a little bread or treat to have at the big bonfire that everybody would have for Samhain, for that celebration. And so that became a tradition. Wasn't considered begging. It was basically going from door to door, and those who had would contribute for the community to have this celebration. And so now, that's morphed into Kit Kats and Skittles or whatever you get on Halloween. But it has some pretty awesome roots, really. It's part of a kind of magical communal celebration. So it wasn't necessarily just something that we made up because we wanted candy.
Well, you know what? There's one house in my area that I know about. Each kid gets a can of pop or a juice box, a bag of chips, and a chocolate bar.
That's a lot. That's like a lunch.
That is a score.
That's like 3 different food groups right there.
I want to ask you, normally I don't ask questions until hour 2, but Jonathan Davies is my guest tomorrow night, and he's in the chat room, and he has this weird thing where he wakes up at 3:33 every night. Wow. Doesn't matter if he went to bed at 3 o'clock or at 9 p.m. at night, 3:33. Been happening for months for him.
Well, I know that, like, for me, I actually frequently look at the clock at 11:11, so that's considered fairy time. And a lot of people, there's some arguments about what the witching hour is. Between midnight and 3 a.m. is usually what most people agree are the witching hour. But that's a very interesting time to wake up repeatedly, especially if it's not something that has happened all, for centuries. Is it just that just only for months this has been happening? And are there any specific like dreams tied to it? Because then that leads me to wonder.
Well, I will say this: the audience will learn more tomorrow, so you'll have to.
I'll have to listen tomorrow. Yeah,
you'll have to listen in. But John is a major contactee experiencer. Okay. And we're trying to figure out why that time.
Yeah. I mean, I could speculate. I will tell you that the number 3 is related to, we kind of know it more commonly as the Holy Trinity, but it is the triple goddess. And so anytime you see 3, especially appearing like that, 333, it definitely seems like some kind of divine message. And of course, we'll have to ask him tomorrow night, but I would be very curious to know if there's a specific pattern of dreams or thoughts that are taking place other than, I can't believe it's 333 again. But that's definitely like, it seems to me like there's some kind of like spirit or otherworldly communication. And I would be curious to know what actually is going through his mind at that moment.
You want to know something that happened to me earlier this year at 3:33 a.m.? Mm-hmm. I heard Olaf Phillips' phone, my buddy Olaf Phillips, his phone rang at 3:33 a.m. And then it hung up, and then it called again, and I heard this doot, doot, doot. And then my mind got hit with that. It's like a diamond with horns.
Whoa.
And it was coming in all sorts of colors, blue, pink, red, like all fluorescent type neon colors. Blue, red, pink, green, black, yellow, orange, purple, and I like the blue one. And
wow.
Yeah, it was amazing.
Well, if I wake up at 3:33 tonight, I'll be tuning in tomorrow and telling you all about it.
Yes. Jonathan says he's had 1 year of heavy nosebleeds.
Oh.
Yeah.
Wow.
How weird is that?
Yeah, that's really weird.
I know you're not really into the ET thing, though, are you?
I mean, it could be. I'm gonna draw a line in the sand, right? I believe in mermaids, so
yes.
I'm not. I don't discount anything, but I don't know. To me, that just seems like some kind of very specific spirit communication, and I'd be kind of curious. My mind goes to, of course, my mind goes to the paranormal, and I think about, is there someone specific that is trying to contact him, and for whatever reason, he's not getting that message. And so they keep waking him up over and over and over again. But it certainly could be some other kind of off-planet communication. I'm not
I can't believe
discounting anything.
I can't believe with all of your high strangeness, you've never had a case of aliens.
I've seen UFOs, but I've never had contact with an alien. No, I have not.
We got to make that happen. We got to make
weird,
that
right?
happen. We got to conjure up some aliens for you. I mean, that's just the way we have to do it. We have no choice.
Yeah, I feel like I need to, go walking down a road in the Pacific Northwest and see what happens.
You never know. Well, there's aliens in Minnesota. Don't kid yourself.
Oh, yeah, of course. I've actually just was reading about this huge meteor shower, I don't remember what it's called, but it's kind of related to like the Hale-Bopp comet, and there was a huge, someone can type it in there. It was like I wanted to say
it's not the Perseids.
It's not the Perseids. It's like a different one. I'm pretty sure it's a different one. Anyway, I couldn't see it because it was completely overcast here. But I did read that especially in Michigan, I think you have some listeners in Michigan, that a lot of people saw, not only did they see meteors, but they actually saw like this huge light shooting across the sky. I think it was last night. I was reading about it this morning. Like a brilliant, huge, and of course, it was speculated that it was the kind of like an end of the piece of that comet, which is part of that meteor shower, that just was larger than the others and was burning out as it came into the atmosphere. But it was kind of in a specific area, so I don't know if anybody saw that. But
well, there was a lady.
Pretty freaky.
There was a lady here in Golden, British Columbia, a week and a half ago, that was woken up by a huge crash and thump. And when she woke up, she saw a hole in her ceiling, and she picked up her pillow and there was a rock the size of a baseball.
Oh, yeah, the lady that got hit by a meteor.
She almost got
killed by it.
Killed by a meteor. Varla Ventura is here on Spaced Out Radio. We're going to get into some weird, strange stories for Halloween build-up here on the mighty SOR. Stay tuned. More Varla next. You know what's funny? I wasn't coughing all day until the beginning of the show.
Yeah, you sound better. Did you take something?
Yeah, my Advil cold and sinus is kicking in.
You need some honey.
No, it doesn't work.
It does.
It does not.
It does too.
I'm a radio guy. I know it works.
It does. You just squirt it, and you just straight honey down your throat.
You know what I've
seen Bjork.
Hot sauce.
You know, the singer Bjork. I've seen her in concert pouring honey down her throat. Getting all over her crazy, fancy, weird dresses.
You know what else works?
Honey.
Hot sauce.
Hot sauce?
Burn your throat.
Wow. I've never tried hot sauce when my throat has hurt.
Yeah.
Have you heard of fire cider? You know what that is?
No, but
fire cider?
I got 3 bottles of Fireball upstairs.
Yeah, so I know that's what I thought it was too. The first time I heard it, I was like, "Ooh, that sounds like cinnamon schnapps."
Fireball.
But no, it's been in the news a lot lately because specifically because it's this herbal. It's this old recipe where basically you use like garlic, horseradish, ginger, onion, cayenne, and you put it all in apple cider vinegar, and you kind of let it steep for a couple of weeks, and then you strain out all the stuff, all the chunks and stuff, ingredients you put in there. So you just have the fire cider left over. And then you take that and you pour some honey into it. And then you have this jar of like this kind of apple cider vinegar honey. And then whenever you start feeling even the littlest bit sick, you just take a spoonful of this and you put it in hot water and you drink it down, and it's supposed to just kind of like kick whatever you have. I mean, it's got garlic and onion and cayenne and all of that. But anyway, the reason it's been in the news, which I thought was really interesting, is that some company came along and tried to put a patent on it. And all of these herbalists were really upset, and they actually went to court. And there was this great picture of like all these totally like witchy women in court with their like fancy New York lawyer saying, "Hey, this is an inherited recipe that we've passed around for 200 years. If you patent fire cider, then we can't make it or call it that anymore. And that's not right." And they won. It was like, I don't know if you've ever heard of Rosemary Gladstar, but she's one of the most renowned herbalists. And she testified, or I think she submitted some testimony, and they fought this big company. They won, and they're now putting together a sort of like herbal apothecary. Nice. What?
Nice.
Yeah, they won. And they're putting together like a list of basically like recipes you cannot patent. Because that way, because there are all of these things that have been passed for really hundreds of years, and you can't come in after the fact and try and patent them. And so they're putting together a whole collective of like, no, these are public domain terms and public domain recipes that anyone can make. And I just thought that was so cool. But anyway, so I actually just started some fire cider, and I haven't tried it yet. I haven't actually consumed it because it's steeping, but I'll let you know.
Awesome. I look forward to it.
Yeah.
I look forward
Send you a bottle.
Okay. Yeah, I just usually will take a teaspoon of some of my warmer hot sauce, not my brutally hot, and I'll just slurp it on down.
And it
just like cough syrup.
Makes your throat feel better?
It burns like hell, and you can literally feel it burning all the way down, and it just clears you out.
Oh.
Hey, everybody. Chad Smith is here. The Chad Smith, everyone. Hi, gorgeous Tammy. What's happening? Who else has joined us here? Big Willie. Big Willie, Big Willie, Big Willie. Johnny Hargrove is here. There he is. All right. Cecil, how you doing, bud? Excuse me. All right, we got about 45 seconds. I want to say a big thank you to Patrick, Cat Chaser, Dirt Road, Rooted in Gorgeous Sacredness, Swamp Dweller, and Linda for the amazing super chats. It's a great way to support what we do on this show on a nightly basis. And remember, a great way to support us as well. Go on our website, spacedoutradio.com, pick up your swag, and check it on out. You can get what you want, hoodies, hats, stickers, you name it. It's right there, and we really appreciate everybody chipping on in. Thank you to all the veterans who are tuning us in tonight. You always have a safe home here on Spaced Out Radio. All our regulars, thank you so much. You guys make this so much fun each and every night, and we're going to get going here in a few seconds. Hi, Aaron, the original Aaron. Eric Johnson, nice to see you, and here we go. Second half hour of Spaced Out Radio is now underway. My name is Dave Scott. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us. We really do appreciate it. Want to remind you that if you missed portions of this show or others, check out our free archives by going to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do me the favor, hit that subscribe button. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to Bumblefoot and reading up on Captain Shirk's SOR Newswire. Check out our swag as well. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on Instagram, Spaced Out Radio Show. We continue on tonight. Varla Ventura, one of the top cryptid writers in North America, looking at the dark and dreary side of everything that goes bump in the night. Her books can be found at varlaventura.net. You can get some swag from her as well, like a coffee cup or a nice ball cap like I'm wearing right now. And Varla, welcome back.
Thank you. Thank you.
Oh, I do have
Happy
to
be
update.
here.
I do have to update our audience on something. I went for my physical this morning. I haven't had a physical in like 6 years. And so my doctor's poking and prodding me all over the place. Does this hurt? Does that hurt? Does this hurt? You know, and then he says, so do you snore at night? I said, Doc, yeah. He goes, well, what's wrong with your nose? Do you have sleep apnea? I said, no, Doc. I said I played hockey. You know, I got a few fights back in the day. I went for nose surgery in 97. I've never experienced pain like that before, and I'm never doing it again. So, and he's like, okay, well, if you need, we can book an appointment. I'm like, no, we're not touching my nose. So everything gets done, and I said, thanks, Doc. He goes, why? I said, because now I know I have high blood pressure now, which is nice. And I'm on this GI diet now, as of tonight. This GI diet, which is, I got to count the points on all vegetables and everything to make sure that I'm not eating a lot of sugars. I got to go on this. I got to go on, what do they call that? That sugar, what's the word I'm looking for here? I'm not good with dietary terms. Fasting. Okay?
Oh.
So I have to fast off of sugar for the next few days to try and bring everything down because old Davey, you know, he looks like a chipmunk right now, to be honest. All right. So, anyways, comes to the end. He's like, "You're done." I said, "Doc, you know, I'm at that age. I'm very thankful I didn't get the finger today." And he goes, "Well, I didn't see any problems and reason to do so." He goes, "But I could check it out if you want." I said, "No, Doc." I said, "Way too late now." I said, "You haven't even talked dirty to me yet. It's too late. Too late." So, everything went well, audience. Everything went perfect today. So, I'm pretty happy.
Almost.
No, what do you mean almost? It was perfect. I did not get the finger. I did not get the finger, which is nice. I was scared about that. But anyways, Varla Ventura is here. Now, she'll tell some spooky stories for us. Varla, where are we starting tonight?
Well, I thought we'd kind of talk about banshees, because I always feel like banshees are among the most frightening and sort of sometimes overlooked of the kind of the root of many ghost stories come from banshees. So I thought we could kick it off with a little discussion.
You take it away.
All right. So I'll just very briefly, I'm sure a lot of people on here have heard of a banshee or know what a banshee is, but just very briefly, a banshee, it actually means of the fairy mound, banshee. And it's kind of somewhere, I look at them as something between the world of what you might call a ghost and the world of the fairy. They are a fairy creature, and they are a harbinger of death. So frequently, I'm sure you've heard of the banshee scream. Not talking about Susie and the Banshees, but the banshee scream is usually the sound that you'll hear before someone dies in your family. So banshees traditionally actually belong to, in the sort of Irish lexicon, banshees would frequently belong to a specific family. And so you could inherit a specific banshee. Now, keep in mind, this is also a time when many people lived in the same castles for generations and generations. So I've often wondered what's being inherited. Is it something that's haunting a place, or is it something that's haunting a family? But there are stories of banshees coming over to the U.S. when people immigrated. So there's all kinds of interesting banshee lore or banshee equivalents. But essentially, one of the reasons the banshees are the most scary of the kind of cryptid or sort of magical, paranormal, supernatural creatures is that they do indicate death, but it's not your death. It's the death of someone you love or care about. So there's like tons and tons of stories of these, beautiful, mournful cries. Sometimes they sound like a woman crying or weeping. Sometimes they sound like someone singing. And it's often been equated to Irish keening, which is a form of mourning at a traditional funeral where women in particular will kind of moan in grief. So you kind of add all those things together and you've got this sort of freaky wailing thing in the night. It's usually depicted as a woman, often a beautiful woman with flowing hair, usually kind of, floaty and ethereal, but that can then transform into something pretty frightening and, with jagged teeth and sunken eyes. You also have sometimes a small sort of a little hag-like woman who's sort of like wandering down the road, and she'll turn and make this horrific cry. And then you also have accounts of basically a disembodied head version of both of those things. It can be like a disembodied beautiful head or a disembodied like really haggish, frightening head. But either way, it's just this terrifying head, and the mouth opens and this horrible scream comes out. So that's pretty scary in and of itself. And then, of course, there are counterparts around the world to what we might consider a banshee by definition being Irish. But you have La Llorona, who, of course, is like this wailing, weeping woman with long, dark hair that appears very, sunken eyes and can sort of indicate death or illness. You have the woman in white. Common in Italy are these sort of like women in white ghosts that will appear in different castles and ruins, and those are usually tied to, the imminent death of someone in the family. Because they were associated with very prominent families at one point, and in particular during the Celtic revival, which is sort of the 1800s, when there was sort of a scholarly attempt to start gathering and collecting all of these old tales, sort of all the old folklore from around Ireland and Scotland and Wales in particular, where a lot of the banshee stories come from. And so during that time, you would have people recounting stories of their own familial banshee. So one of the ones that I always really liked is the story of a a family who basically, I think I have it in my book. It's basically this girl is supposed to be married off, and she is this, beautiful young woman, and she's to be married off, and she's actually quite miserable about the whole thing. And he that night, the night before the wedding, her mom hears this banshee. She hears the sound of this woman like just weeping and crying, and she knows that it's a banshee. And the next day, her the fiance, she finds out that the fiance that night murdered her daughter, who didn't want to be with him and tried to escape, and he killed her in the process. So that's a pretty, kind of a super grim one. But there's also there also sometimes people only hear the banshee, so you don't have to necessarily see it. But if you see it, you also will hear it. I've never heard of someone just seeing it and not hearing the kind of crazy moaning sound.
Are there male banshees?
So that's a really interesting question. I actually was like kind of rereading some of the source material where I found a lot of the stuff for my book about banshees, and banshees themselves are almost always depicted as female. There's very few instances of this kind of like specifically banshee. That there's a few instances I found where it was more ambiguous. And, freaky. Oh,
I'll read it.
Yeah.
Jonathan says, long black hair, bull-like eyes, took my oxygen. I'm in Wales, Varla. An inch from my face. Pissed her off as I could.
Okay. Yeah, that's terrifying. And that definitely sounds like a banshee. And I've actually heard a couple of other kind of like dark-haired floating head things and difficulty breathing associated with banshees. Now, back to the can they be male? Because this came up, actually. It's great that someone asked that. As I was reading tonight, I did see Elliot O'Donnell, who's one of my favorite writers. He was an Irishman who actually, unlike a lot of the sort of collectors of the time, he had grown up in a haunted house. And so all of his writings actually come more from the point of view of a believer versus a skeptic, and not a believer in a religious sense, but a believer in a person who had actually had paranormal experiences since he was a child. And he wrote extensively about banshees. And he also wrote about what we call the counterparts to the banshees. And he addressed, I was rereading something in this book about Scottish folklore that he wrote. And he talked about how banshees are typically seen female. Occasionally, it's nondescript. It's neither male nor female. And that there are some counterparts of warning ghosts, or what might be considered a banshee, but in other cultures, specifically, he was talking about one in Germany and one in Scotland that were male. So he didn't exactly say this is a male banshee, but it was like this is kind of playing the same role. And of course, we know throughout mythology, anything that is sort of a harbinger of death, you can find them in male, female, all different kinds of gods and goddesses that actually sort of let you know that death is nigh, and also shapeshifters and other kind of signs that you may die. There's those horrible washerwomen, and these were often seen by men before they went into battle. And they basically, what would happen is you would hear something much like a banshee, and you'd see down at the stream this woman washing and wringing out rags that were bloody. And it said that if you saw her before battle, you usually lost the battle. And what she's doing is actually kind of saying like, yeah, I'm washing your blood out into the stream. So disturbing.
Very disturbing. Do we still have encounters like this happening around North America today?
Yeah. I've actually had quite a few people call in when I've been on shows, or write in, or make write to me and just sort of ask ask for my opinion about what they have seen. And it's disembodied heads, people hearing something that they can't quite understand what it was. And because people aren't necessarily associating it with a banshee, they kind of have to look back in time and think, did somebody die within, a week or so? Because it's usually anywhere from like 24 hours to like maybe 2 weeks before that person will fall ill and usually die. Sometimes they make a recovery, but usually if the banshee's involved, it's pretty much all over. So, I've had actually quite a few people share those stories with me. I personally have never seen one, which is part of the reason probably I'm extra scared of them. It's like, I'm not scared of very many things, but I am scared of people that I love dying unexpectedly. That's what I'm scared of, I would say. I'm not particularly scared of me dying unexpectedly so much as people that I love, because that's such a helpless feeling. And so I can kind of relate to that, that horrible crying, keening. I think we all can. I'm sure we've all lost people that we love, and it feels very kind of out of your hands. And with the banshee, it just really, I don't know. Do you want to be warned, or would you rather just, because if you're warned and you can do nothing about it, because there aren't very many heroic banshee stories. Let me tell you that. It's usually, I heard this banshee, she died. I heard this banshee, he died. I saw this banshee, they died. It's very rarely, hey, I heard this banshee and I came to save you, because you don't always know who that banshee is for. So it's just kind of, and I'll just say the banshee kind of gets a bad rap because they're just sort of like the messengers. They don't actually cause death. I have read a couple stories where people were so scared when they heard it that they, leapt off a cliff and things like that. I've heard that about Pookas as well, just being so scared. But they don't necessarily cause death or harm, although they can kind of have some poltergeist-like behavior. There's one story I believe it's in Elliot O'Donnell's collection about banshees, where he talks about this banshee that he calls them a malevolent spirit, and that it would actually come repeatedly in this one area. It would come into the houses, and it would, not only would you hear this sound, but it would be like a howling wind would come through, and it would actually smash all the plates and kind of terrorize and blow the fire out, and kind of like a little weird little hurricane with this horrible beast. And then it would go away, and then someone would die within a couple of days. So
pleasant.
Yeah,
pleasant.
Pretty frightening. Yeah.
Well, that's exciting times. Very much exciting. Varla Ventura is here for our Cryptid World Halloween edition tonight. And Varla, we're going on to the fairy realm. Do you believe that a lot of these people who go missing are kidnapped to the fairy realm?
Yeah, it could be actually just when we talk about, like, even when I've listened to people's abduction stories or read people's abduction stories, and I am not by any means saying this to discount people's experience, but there are a lot of parallels with fairy kidnappings. And it certainly has led me to wonder if what we are calling, what we're calling alien abduction and what was once called fairy kidnapping, if we're not actually describing something different, just with a new language. So, but there are quite a few. The absence of time, inability to kind of place how you got there. Frequently, when you're in that place, having sort of like cloudy memories and vague memories of an experience, but not being really clear of what happened. Not having much choice in the matter as far as whether you could go or leave, and then finally being sort of like released, and often being very depleted, tattered clothes or no clothes, starving, unsure of how long you've been gone, all of those kind of things that are happen with being lost in the fairy kingdom. And in particular, the sort of like messing with time, that whole idea of, we're thinking of time as in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And, I think we all know time doesn't actually work like that. It's not the same. Anyone who's ever been, present at a birth or a death can testify that time is not the same during those. Time ticks and the clock ticks, but time feels different in those times when someone's taking their first breath and their last breath. So at least that's how I've experienced it. And so I think time is not always the same. And when we cross over, we have some crazy parallel stuff going on, then time, our understanding of time is really kind of thrown out of whack. And it's hard for us to make sense of that.
Gemma Jade was on this show a couple weeks ago talking about the fairy realm and how she has a new book out, and she was talking about how she believes that a lot of the people who vanish in these parks and everything are actually being taken into the fairy realm, whether it's as guests or whether it's as slaves or whether it's as food, and some never to be returned again, and she believes a lot of these children who have had encounters, who disappeared and then came back talking about strange creatures, have gone into the fairy realm. Do you believe the fairy realm is a real place?
Yes, I do. I absolutely do. And I think that, yes, I think that some of those kind of disappearances could be explained in that way, especially when you have some sort of misunderstanding about how you got there, or maybe not misunderstanding, but lack of understanding of how it actually happened. Now, I will say, though, that many people can and do enter the fairy realm, both metaphorically and physically, and in Celtic mythology specifically, just as you would go into the underworld to sort of achieve something or gain something for your people, that is very common, that you would implore the fairies to help you in your work, to help you in your battle, to help you succeed. And that sometimes it took that sacrifice, that terrifying sacrifice of going into the underworld in order to bring back whatever you needed to make a success of, the battle or whatever it is you're trying to achieve. So there's a hero element of that. And it's actually cross-culturally, you'll see that idea of going into a cave, going into a mountain, going into some kind of darkness and sensory deprivation in order to have an experience that transcends space and time. So
very cool. So do you think people have their memories tapped before coming out of the fairy realm, so they don't quite know what is happening?
I think it depends. So one thing, should you ever find yourself in the fairy realm, one thing that you don't want to do above all, at all costs, do not eat or drink anything. So you can hang there, but you have to very politely refuse all of those beautiful little cakes and the luscious fruit and the goblets of wine, because it's actually said that if you do that, you are then you are taking kind of enchantments. So straight. You're kind of taking enchantments from the fairy kingdom, and so therefore you are sort of enslaved by them, I guess. And you have this mythology. People are probably quite familiar with Persephone, right? Persephone, she marries Hades. Well, she's basically stolen and forced to marry him. But before she leaves, because her mother, Demeter, who is like the goddess of all crops, before she leaves to go back up to the world to be with her mother, she's now Hades' wife, and he gives her the seed of a pomegranate. And because she eats that seed of the pomegranate, she's tied to the underworld. And so 6 months out of the year, she lives underground with him. That's winter. and the other 6 months she lives above ground. Of course, this is in Greece where you only had two. It's the Mediterranean climate. You only have 2 seasons,
Right.
But it's a similar mythology.
All right.
Eating snacks.
Varla Ventura, we're going to eat some snacks during the break. We're going to talk about, how you keep your teeth so white and clean and shiny. And we're going to talk more stories with the awesome and talented Varla Ventura. Varla Ventura comes in once a month for Our Cryptid World. This time it's the haunted edition of the show. Her website, varlaventura.net. She's too good for a .com. She goes with the .net. We'll be back right after this. All right, we're clear.
All right. Well, if you just had if you did have hot sauce a little bit ago, it seems to have helped.
No, I didn't have any.
Oh,
I don't have a bottle. I put some Vicks Vapor Rub on.
That's what you were doing.
The God.
I thought I actually thought that was the signal.
Right there.
I thought that was the signal, so I just kept talking because I thought you were making the signal.
I was actually rubbing on Vicks Vapor Rub.
Vapor Rub.
Love it.
That stuff's I have such a childhood association with that. Of like your mom coming and putting that on, making you feel better than that.
Yep. So I call up my dad today. I'm like, "Hey, Pop, how's it going?" Because my mom has been in hospital the last few days.
Oh no.
Yeah. So I call up my dad and FaceTime. "Hey, Dad, what's going on?" "Oh, not much. How you doing?" "I just had some dinner." And I said, "How's Mom doing?" I sent her a text message. "Oh, she had surgery today." What? What? "Yeah, she's not doing very well, man." I'm like, do you want to maybe tell me about this?
Wow.
My mom's a 2-time cancer survivor. Okay. And so what's happened now is, my mom, like over time, when you go through chemotherapy and radiation, it absolutely, as you get older, attacks your immune system and it beats the hell out of your body. Like you're putting poison in. The doctors are putting legalized poison in your body to kill the cancer.
Yeah.
And you'd think after 70 years of Agent Orange, they would come up with something a little bit more healthier. But no, they haven't yet. And that's where the $10 billion a year I'm not even going to get started on the whole cancer donation thing. But anyways, so my mom has been not healthy the last few years, and the chemotherapy and the radiation finally got into her kidneys. So my mother's kidneys are starting to fail. And so over time they've been trying to, like, she's 78 years old, she's still pretty young, but they're trying to find a vein, and they can't get a vein in. So they had to go in for surgery today to get a vein in her back to get her kidneys onto dialysis tonight. I'm just like, you got to be kidding me. So I may
poor mom.
Yeah, I may have to go get tested to see if Mom could use a kidney. Like if
see if you're a match.
Yeah, if it comes down to that, because I totally would. I don't need to. I'm not playing any rough sports anymore.
Your kidneys are probably in great shape.
Mine, oh yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I'm so sorry to hear that, Dave. That's a bummer.
My mom's a fighter, so she's pretty good. Hey, Jeremy Jones, what's happening? And so, I don't know.
But also, I can really relate to that, just like dropping really important news and you have to call and get it. It's like, hi, oh yeah, everything's fine, just going down for a procedure. Like, what procedure? Well, didn't I tell you? No?
No, you seem to have skipped that one.
Oh. Well, that's a shame.
Yeah, that's okay.
You have siblings, right?
Yeah, my one sister I don't talk to.
That's right.
And my other sister I only talk to part-time.
Which 6 months out of the year?
No, about every 3-4 weeks. Hey, Drake. Hey, Alex. How you doing? Thanks for coming on in. Thank you, Luis Montez. There, he has one hell of a great mustache.
Oh,
he's got one of them power lip blades. Like if you went to touch it, it would cut you. It's so sharp. It's beautiful. We got about 90 seconds.
Okay. And the crowd goes silent.
Of course. Oh, now we got 90 seconds now. I apologize. Sweet Tony D, how are you? Good morning to you, my friend.
I have a deeply disturbing description of a...
Do it. Don't even talk about it. Just do it.
Okay.
Just do it. Mr. Lurks-a-Lot, the gorgeous Ivy Gold has returned, everyone. I want to say a big thank you to Noble Patrick, Awesome Cat Chaser, the lovely Dirt Road, Rooted in Gorgeous Sacredness, Swamp Dweller, and lovely Linda for the amazing super chats. Remember, it's a great way to support what we do nightly here on Spaced Out Radio, and we really do appreciate all of your super chats, so thank you so much. And if you're new here, do us a favor, hit that subscribe button, ring that bell, and if you're a veteran, much love to you. You always have a safe home here on Spaced Out Radio. We love our veterans around here, and all the regulars, including Fapster. Yeah, including Fapster. Notice how I got a hat on my head, Fap? Are you jealous? I bet you are. Thank you so much for your love and attention each and every night here on the show. I really have a good time coming on in here nightly to chat with you guys. It really makes my evening each and every night. So thank you. Mr. TMI, how are you?
You're listening to Spaced Out Radio with Dave Scott. Follow Dave on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on Facebook, Spaced Out Radio Show.
Second half hour of Spaced Out Radio. Make that the second hour of Spaced Out Radio is now underway. My name is Dave Scott. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us. We really do appreciate earning your listening ears wherever you are on this beautiful planet we call Earth. Want to say hello to everyone listening in on our terrestrial affiliates around North America and digitally on TalkStream Live, Revolution Radio, and KPNL. All of our archives are free. Just go to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Just do old Davey the favor. Hit that subscribe button. The Desert Clam has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Venegenis. Venegenis is your password. Use it wisely, space travelers, as the Clam sets the password each and every night right here on Spaced Out Radio. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to Bumblefoot, reading up on Captain Shirk's SOR Newswire, and checking out our swag. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on Instagram, Spaced Out Radio Show. We continue on tonight with the haunted edition of our cryptid world. The lovely and talented Varla Ventura is back to greet us, join us, and tell us some spooky stories. Her website, varlaventura.net. You can get all her books there or in any major bookstore across North America. Hello, Varla.
Hello, Dave.
I got a question here for you before we get going.
Okay.
This is from Tony in the UK. Varla, can we ask you about Merlin the Wizard and dragons?
You can. What would you like to know? Merlin actually, Merlin is one of the most famous wizards. He's often associated with, we hear about him with King Arthur, but there's a long tradition of wizards and magicians being associated with kings or powerful men, because of course they were consults. So Merlin, of course, we know him as the most, one of the most powerful wizards, kind of has gone down in history. He's often associated with the quest for the golden chalice. And yeah, I mean, I think also Merlin himself, there's actually not that much known about him. A lot of it is speculation on whether or not he was a real man who practiced the magical arts, or if he's an amalgam of many different kinds of magical men at the time. But it was very common to have, and particularly in sort of medieval times, you had some kind of high magician who was performing alchemy and transformation in order to help the greater good, which was usually the battle for, land or territory, or to elevate people. So as far as dragons, I don't know that much about dragon lore. I'm not sure if there's like something specific. I think that mermaids, that Merlin was associated with dragons and had the ability to tame and sort of manifest dragons, and also could sort of shapeshift. A lot of people think that Merlin was a shapeshifter. And I do believe that he is associated with a lot of the fairy lore in his own way. You had the Manon MacLear, who is sort of the god of the seas, who would send a veil of invisibility and this cloak of fog, and it would go out over the islands. And the Isle of Man, which is thought to be one of the most magical places in the British Isles, is still cloaked to this day with Manon's cloak, and the Isle of Man is actually named for him. And it's thought also this island is also thought to be, well, a lot of people speculate that it is Avalon itself. So I don't know if that's exactly what you were asking, but
that's
what I got.
That works for us.
That's what I got.
One more question here before we get to your next story for us. Kaiju is asking, what are some cryptids that we don't hear a lot about, but you think we should?
Well, I actually think that people don't talk about Banshees, Changelings, and Pookas enough. Those are some of my favorite sort of, I consider them cryptids. I kind of put all of those creatures into the same category, sort of magical beings, supernatural creatures. Pookas are some of my favorite, and they're often overlooked. They're a trickster shapeshifter. They can appear as a rabbit, they can appear as an eagle, they can appear as a dog, but most frequently it'll be either a goat or a horse or a rabbit. And there's actually a lot of instances of Pookas in even modern culture, modern pop culture, that we don't always realize are references to these very, very old tales, such as the weird bunny in Donnie Darko that followed him around everywhere, that like creepy thing. That's totally a Pooka. There's Harvey in the old black and white movie with Jimmy Stewart. Elwood P. Dowd talks to a giant white bunny that's invisible to everyone else. There's some Easter bunny kind of tie in there. So I feel like, Pookas are pretty interesting, and they're also, sometimes the word Pooka is just used as a substitute for fairies. And I will say one thing about all of those kind of cryptid creatures is, just as if you're researching ancestry and you have to be very loose about spellings, because you have people who were writing names before they could speak English or write English, or people who couldn't read who were signing their names. So you have to be very, right, when you're doing ancestral research, you have to be very loose and open-minded. And so I think with cryptid creatures, we have to remember that we have interpretation upon interpretation of things that were called something in a different language. And we have something that you might call hobgoblin, and then I would call a goblin. And then over here in Japan, a goblin is like this really terrifying thing. And so we have to keep kind of like that open-mindedness of not saying like one thing is always all Pooka. Pooka is just a word for fairy. That may be how your grandmother called it. And in different stories, you'll see things referred to, the same kind of creatures referred to by different names. So I try and kind of define those things, but with the caveat that, it's loose. The definitions are loose because we are talking about an invisible realm that, isn't exactly easy to pinpoint. We love to define things and put them in categories, but sometimes things are just completely malleable and you can't really quite hold them down. So,
all right, story time.
Story time. Okay, so I pulled up a really gruesome description.
All right.
I think it's pretty gruesome. I mean, it's not the gruesomest. It's I'd say PG-13 maybe. And this actually comes from Elliot O'Donnell. I mentioned him before. He was an Irish writer. Wrote in the late 1800s and early 1900s, mostly wrote about folklore and ghost stories in particular. And he wasn't making up ghost stories. He wasn't like writing, he wasn't like Charles Dickens, who was just sort of like writing these stories and adding ghosts in them. He was going around and collecting the lore, and primarily in Ireland. But he did this particular story. This description is from Scotland. And there's just the backstory, because I'm mostly going to just read you what he experienced. But the backstory is the very last story in his book. And he said he went to this castle, and it's, let's see, the castle is, I think it's called Glennis Castle. And he goes to this castle, and he has heard that this castle is haunted. And he actually goes with his mother and sister to stay there. And he kind of thinks, and by the way, the O'Donnells have a banshee, which I learned, in one of his earlier books. They do have like their own banshee. So they go to this castle, and he actually, he doesn't feel anything. He doesn't really think it's particularly haunted. He's just like, okay, it's actually really pleasant. And he writes all of this in his stories. So his setup is like, it was a beautiful day, and we had lovely quarters, and everything was going well until he went to sleep. And this is his description of what happened to him. Slowly, very slowly, the thing, whatever it was, took shape. Legs, crooked, misshapen human legs. A body, tawny and hunched. Arms, long and spidery, with crooked, knotted fingers. A head, large and bestial and covered with a tangled mass of gray hair that hung around its protruding forehead and pointed ears and in a ghastly mockery of curls. A face, and herein was the realization of all my direct expectations, a face, white and staring, pig-like in formation, malevolent in expression, a hellish combination of all things foul and animal, and yet, without all, not a touch of pathos. As I stared at it aghast, it reared itself on its haunches after the manner of an ape and leered piteously at me. Then, shuffling forward, it rolled over and lay sprawled out like some ungainly turtle and wallowed, as for warmth, in the cold gray beams of early dawn. At this juncture, the handle of the chamber door turned. Someone entered. There was a loud cry, and I awoke. Awoke to find the whole tower, walls and rafters, ringing with the most appalling screams I have ever heard. Screams of something or of someone, for there was in them a strong element of what was human as well as animal, in the greatest distress. Wondering what it meant, and more than ever terrified, I sat up in bed and listened whilst a conviction, the result of an intuition, suggestion, or what you will, but a conviction all the same, forced me to associate the sounds with the thing in my dream. And I associate them still.
Wow.
Remember that freaky spider thing you told me about, Dave? Yeah. Freaky.
Yeah. That's pretty insane. Pretty insane. And eerie and dark.
Yeah, and I liked that he sort of, as so many of us when we have paranormal experiences, we often are like, am I dreaming? Did I wake up? What, is this a dream? And then there's this kind of something else that happens after that to make you understand that you're fully awake. And for him, it was the very walls moaning. And again, like, this is, of course, he's a beautiful writer, but these are based on his own accounts, not fictional stories. Like, he wasn't like Edgar Allan Poe. He was traveling around and recording stories and experiencing things. So, pretty interesting person.
That is such a deep set of words. I mean, I can see where it could be lost in translation very easily.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I thought that you would especially appreciate the weird spider-like yet humanoid leg part of it. Appreciate or forever curse me for reminding you of the horrible spidery things that lurk out there.
Oh, yes. Yes. Including some of the organizers who created that Spidey thing. Yes. We got a few minutes to go here. We got about 9 minutes before we got to go to break at the bottom of the hour. Varla Ventura's spooky, haunted, our cryptid world tonight. Varla, you know, there's a lot of creepy creatures out there that you have written about and told stories about with your books and just in your research. You know, what scares you? What is nightmarish for Varla Ventura?
Well, I am tomorrow night going to some sort of haunted complex that involves a hayride, an asylum, a circus act, and 4 or 5 other things I'm not aware of what they are. So I'll let you know if I get scared at any of those. I'm mostly scared that it's going to be like 30 degrees. So I'm more afraid of that. What scares me? There's, you know, there are times when I worry about, I guess I'm most, things that scare me the most are things that I think could do something to my son. Like, that's usually, you know, honestly, I am more scared of modern day humans and their horrifying behavior and their disgusting habits than I am of anything supernatural or paranormal. And that is like, I just don't, that's the kind of stuff I'm scared of, you know, the more reality stuff. I'm not particularly frightened, but I will tell you a little secret about me. When I get scared, I laugh. If I go to a haunted house or something startles me, I just start laughing. I can't help it. I just start laughing, and then I laugh and I laugh. I don't really scream. I just laugh. So I'll probably be laughing until my head hurts tomorrow night. But actually, changelings and the stories of changelings are pretty scary. There are some pretty terrifying stories. And those are the things that sort of switch out for a human, usually a human baby, but sometimes it can be a full-grown adult who gets sort of kidnapped and taken into the fairy kingdom, which we were talking a little bit about. But there's something about the fairy switch of the baby and the changeling that is particularly haunting to me for the obvious reasons, right? Like, how horrible to think that your baby is taken into the fairy kingdom. But also for the haunting reality that a lot of those creatures and babies that were thought were changelings and that were left on fairy mounds hoping for the human baby to come back were actually children that had birth defects. So I find that particularly disturbing and haunting. And I think the underlying creepitude in much of this folklore is something that has kept me up at night, for sure.
You know what scares me is
spiders, snakes, sharks.
Well, besides sharks and big snakes, like, I don't know, any type of big snake over 2 feet long. What scares me about the entire cryptid world is when you see something that is not supposed to be real, that you've only read in books or seen in movies, and then you see it with your own eyes. It is it's frightening because it's surreal. It's not frightening because you're seeing it.
Right.
It's just, I remember like looking at Bigfoot or seeing the extraterrestrials. And it was so dramatic for me because my brain could not comprehend what my eyes were seeing.
Yeah, yeah. And it messes with your sense of reality and space and time just on like the next day. You're just like, okay, what? I just make coffee and go about, it changes you.
Yes.
It definitely changes you. Yeah, and I think we've probably all gone through and been put through by people that we love the like question of, are you sane or not, right? Like you definitely have that experience. A lot of people in the community get a lot of flack and there's a lot of bias around it for sure. So then people keep their stories to themselves, right? And they don't want to admit what they've seen, or they're trying to explain it away. But it changes your perspective in a way that you can't really ever go back. And that can be frightening in a like eye-opening kind of mind-blowing way. That is definitely frightening, but not in a like jump scare kind of way. Oh, I also am kind of afraid of lobsters. Just in the like weird phobia type things. Like I can't even like just even thinking about lobsters right now.
Why?
Just, I don't know.
They're so good.
No lobsters. No, alive, dead. Thinking of them, stuffed toy lobsters. No lobsters. No lobsters for me. I can handle scorpions. I can handle crabs. Okay. I can handle crawdads and shrimp. Kind of not my favorite, but okay. But like, I'm not talking about eating, just like the creatures themselves. But lobsters, just really.
Now you're talking the lobsters with the big claws, or the rock lobsters that don't have the claws.
Any kind of lobsters are not. I would prefer not to experience them in my life in any way.
That is a weird thing to be scared of.
Right? I know. You'd think I would say, like, you're this making terrifying scribble monster that comes to my door every night.
You were making fun of me about being absolutely terrified of snakes and sharks. Okay?
I wasn't making fun. I was just pointing out.
Totally making fun of me.
That's what you're afraid of.
Yeah. Oh, look at this. Look at this chump. He's afraid of sharks.
Well, you know what? I guess we're... I'm not as afraid of sharks as I am. I don't know. I'm not like afraid of them. Like they're going to come barging in my door and, get me with their horrible, I just don't like them. How some people are like that with spiders. I'm like that with lobsters. I love spiders. Spiders could crawl all over me. I'd be fine. But get a lobster within 6 feet of me and I'm, yeah.
You know what else is a horrible feeling is when you're walking in like knee deep in the ocean and the seaweed starts to get under in your shoes and wrap around your legs. That grosses me out.
Yeah, and then you're like, or if you're swimming and then you can't see and then you're like completely calm and then suddenly your mind starts thinking about some kind of like tentacle that's going to reach up and grab you and then you sort of lose your like float reality and kind of mess everything up and then your feet go down and then they get tangled. I mean, I've actually had that experience many times. I used to swim in the ocean all the time when I was a kid, actually, believe it or not. Yeah, a lot.
No, not me. I will say this. I have a freaky fishing story.
Ooh.
We used to go on this lake. It was literally right in between two mountain peaks. And so in this valley, there was this up on top of the mountain, there was this beautiful lake called Spider Lake. And we would go fishing in there. And so we were all in belly boats. And if you've ever belly boated, you got flippers on your feet. And you kind of slowly kick your way backwards as you're fishing facing forwards. So here I am kicking backwards. and there was a bunch of...
Wait. Is your body in the water?
No, yeah, half your body is. The rest is in a tube, right?
Oh, cool.
And so we only got 25 seconds. So here I am paddling away, and you get that feeling that something's behind you. I turn and look, and I see this white thing in the water coming out for my butt. And as I hit it, I realize that it's not a shark or a sea monster. It is just a dead log under the water. But it scared the daylights out of me. All right, varlaventura.net is her website. And, of course, you can find all of Varla's books in any major bookstore or on varlaventura.net. The spooky edition of our cryptid world continues with the lovely and talented Varla Ventura right after this. That's our Fapster.
I love spiders.
Nope.
Love them.
Nope. Nope. No need for spiders.
Spiders are actually vital to the ecosystem.
They are. Hey, I don't mind spiders. I don't kill spiders. But when you're getting into like tarantula-sized spiders or those Australian spiders that are like 4 feet long, because everything kills you in Australia.
I know, right?
Or or those camel spiders that are found in the sands of Afghanistan.
Yeah, those are freaky.
No,
those are freaky.
Yeah, there's no need for those.
Yeah.
Hey, Dirty Filth, how are you, buddy? It's all good. What else is new?
Let's see. Well, I've written and have started recording some podcast episodes, some little episodes of a little show I'm gonna release.
Yes.
So yeah, it's called Midnight Stories.
Yes.
And it's little excerpts of, it's just short little stories. I actually had this like really grand idea, and I realized that what I like are stories. I like telling stories. I like hearing people tell stories. I like reading stories. And I have a few stories that I just really, really enjoy in particular that I've already researched. So I'm going to, just read some stories from my book, tell some news stories, not necessarily fiction stories, although I might throw in, I have been dabbling in horror fiction there, but mostly just like a little kind of terrifying story to put you to bed at night or in the middle of the day.
Well, I can guarantee you by show of hands in the chat room how many of our listeners would totally hit subscribe if you did that on YouTube.
Yeah, I can do that. All I have now are the the stories picked out, and my son wrote me some freaky piano music for the the intro, and then I'm pretty good to go. I just have to do a little bit of recording. I just got actually some new I ordered some new equipment so I could record new headphones.
Cool.
Yeah.
We'll help you out.
Thanks. Actually, you could help me with the recommendation of, but see, you're very adept. I just was doing these,
Yeah, but you sound great.
They sound better than probably something else I could afford. Until I can actually invest into something that's a little more like upgraded and soundproof. But the problem for me is that I'm a very low tech person, so I need few buttons to press as possible in order to make it happen and make it successful. And I know this about myself.
You know what? I will
right?
I will volunteer Chad Smith to help you set it up.
The Chad Smith. He loves all that audio geek stuff. He loves it. Great. Yeah. So I probably, because I've been reading reviews and stuff, but it's just hard to it's hard to know if anything's really. Actually, a lot of the reviews just say if you can't afford the $300 setup or whatever, or the $1,000 setup, just get some, $20 Apple earbuds, and those have the good sound or whatever these are.
All you need is a blue Yeti microphone, and
Blue Yeti.
They're inexpensive. They sound great. By the way, L Pepper is asking, what is your skeleton's name?
Oh, his name is do you really want to know?
Yeah.
Okay, this is if Jem is listening. Jem, I'm going to say it. So my friends came to visit, and I set them up in their room, which is this room. They stayed in this room. And my friends Pirate Chris and Jem. And I put the skeleton in there, and they asked me what its name was, and I said, it's Shiny McButtstain. And then everybody loved it, and so it's Shiny McButtstain is his name.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and then Jem he was sitting in a chair, and so Jem took some gold eyeshadow that she had and smeared it on the chair. Nice. So after she left, when I moved Shiny McButtstain, he had left a shiny.
Nice, very nice. All right.
Those are good friends, right?
We got 15 seconds. Big thank you to Hugh, to Rob, Patrick, Cat Chaser, Dirt Road, Rooted in Gorgeous Sacredness, Swamp Dweller, and Linda for the super chats. Thank you to all you tuning us in. Here we go with the second half. Past the halfway point of Spaced Out Radio tonight. My name is Dave Scott. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us. We really do appreciate it. Want to remind you that if you miss portions of this show or others, check out our free archives by going to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do me the favor, hit that subscribe button. Our website is spacedoutradio.com. We have a bunch of plethora of features for you, including checking out our swag, rocking out to Bumblefoot, and reading up on Captain Shirk's SOR Newswire. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on Instagram, Spaced Out Radio Show. It's a haunted, our cryptid world tonight with one of our favorite writers who joins us once a month. Varla Ventura is here. You can find all of her books on Amazon, on our website, and in any major bookstore across North America. Varla's website, varlaventura.net. Welcome back, Ms. Varla.
Why, thank you.
Very good to have you here.
Yeah, I love being here, and I love your audience. They're just they're so fun and interactive and kind and funny and very quick-witted. And also they are a little bit dirty sometimes.
Yeah, they are a little weird, and I love them for it.
Yeah, it's great.
Yes. So we're talking spooky stories all night long here. And, of course, it wouldn't be Halloween without talking about any witchy-type stories. Do you have one that you could share with us?
Oh, well, I have quite a few witchy stories. Let me think of a particularly scary witch story. Well, one of the stories that I really like is it's kind of a variation on Baba Yaga. So if anybody knows about Baba Yaga, she's a witch from Russian and Slavic folklore. Some accounts say that she stands in a house in the forest that's on chicken feet and can actually move about the forest, chasing little children in particular. She's actually sort of the inspiration for that horrible witch in Hansel and Gretel. That's kind of... Yeah, I mean, I'm an inner 10-year-old. I'm just going to say that, I'm Shiny McButtstain. So anyway, back to Baba Yaga. So she's pretty terrifying, and, she sort of thrives on little lost children in the woods and will kind of trap people. So she really is, if you think of that witch in Hansel and Gretel, Baba Yaga is kind of the terrifying inspiration for that. But one of the stories that I really like is more of a goblin story and but also a witch story. And it's rooted in Japanese folklore, although the version that I read had been translated and then I would say very, very much embellished in the English language by the writer who had been, who had done this in the Victorian era. So I never found the original source story for this, which was probably a little bit scarier. But it's basically a witch lives in a forest and has a little hut. And there's a man who's walking the mountains at night, and it's getting dark, and he thought he could go a little further than he's able to, and he's starting to get very tired, and the darkness is setting in. And of course, he's a man of the cloth. These stories always involve, some sort of good evil element, especially in the Victorian retellings in which Christianity was heavily shoved into the folklore. And so he's walking, he's kind of, starting to think, well, I should probably find shelter for the night. But he's looking around, there's not much around. He sort of sees a glow off in the woods, but he knows that these woods are supposed to be haunted and that there's supposed to be a witch that lives here. And a goblin that does her bidding. And so he wanders along the road a little bit further, and then he still sees that glow. And finally, it's just starting to get cold, and he's quite hungry, and he thinks, hey, I'm going to have faith, right? I'm just going to go up to the house of the stranger and see if they'll take me in. So he goes into the house, and it's very cold in there, and he's very cold, and the glow is coming from sort of a little lantern. And he asks, he knocks at the door, and the door opens, and there's a little old lady there who looks perfectly innocent. She just sort of looks like a shriveled little old lady. And he thinks, here's the witch of legend. Everybody just thinks she's a witch, but in fact, she's just this harmless old lady, and I'm sure she'll take me in for the night. So he asks her if he can come in, and she says no. And he's a little surprised. He says, well, please, it's cold out here. I have no food. I won't ask of much. I'll just sleep in the corner. So she lets him in. And then he says, is it possible to build a fire? Right? Because it's freezing cold in there, and he's cold, and she's all bundled up in like layers of rags and blankets. And she says, I guess we can make a fire, but I don't have any wood. And he says, well, I'll go out in the woods and get wood. And she says, no. You stay here. I'll go get the wood. You make yourself comfortable, but whatever you do, do not open that door. Well, the little old lady goes off into the dark of the night. She goes to gather the wood, and she's gone a really long time. And he's sitting there, and he's quite cold, and he's looking at the door, and he's kind of looking at the cold hearth, and he's looking at the door, and then he looks out and tries to see if the little old lady's coming back. She's not coming back. And so he opens the door. And when he opens the door, it's littered with bones. There's human bones scattered on the floor. There's skulls stacked high. And at that moment, he realizes that this is not an innocent little old lady, but this is probably the witch and a goblin that does her bidding, who will soon be back to get him. And so because he looked in the door, he immediately bolts out into the night and runs back to the road and runs until he collapses down, as dawn is breaking. And he gets away with it, right? And so later, when he comes to the village the next day, he describes what happened to him. And they said, oh, yeah, if you had just stayed there, she would have eaten you and put you in that closet. So his curiosity actually kind of rescued him. And he no longer didn't believe in witches.
Or cannibals.
That's the story.
Oh,
or cannibals.
My goodness.
Well, are you a cannibal if you are a otherworldly creature and you're eating humans? No, you have to eat. Cannibalism, by definition, is eating your own kind, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Either way, if you're eating humans, it's cannibalism.
Yeah. Well, if you're human, that's my point. What if you're not human?
How do we know she wasn't human?
Yeah, well, we don't actually. We think she probably
well,
was. She's just a witch with a goblin and a room full of bones.
I don't blame her.
Perfectly innocent.
Perfectly innocent. Yeah. Yeah, perfectly innocent. All right. I love that story. That just kind of put me on the edge of my seat there for a little bit. I appreciated that one. For you, you have any. You also specialize in a lot of mermaid type stories. Do you have a mermaid story that is kind of creepy and spooky?
Oh, yeah, they're almost all creepy and spooky. I know that we think of mermaids and we kind of think of the Little Mermaid in like that Disney way, and we think of them as being these, beautiful half fish, half women with gorgeous hair, sunning themselves on the rocks, singing. And that's a fairly accurate depiction of some mermaids on the surface. But a lot of the mermaid stories are pretty different. The mermaids are perhaps attractive at first, and that's how they lure someone into the sea, but sometimes not. In fact, there's the Merrow, which is the Irish word for mermaids, and they are considered part of the fairy realm. And the king of the Merrow is absolutely horrifying. He's snaggle-toothed and he has wild hair and incredibly sharp features and long, sharp fingernails on his upper arms, and is actually something that you don't want to do battle with. He would totally beat out a shark or shark man, just saying. So one of my favorite stories is, it's kind of like many of the mermaid stories, especially from Ireland, there's always kind of a funny little twist in there. And one of my favorite stories, though, is the story of this guy who's basically walking home one night or one afternoon. He's heading home and it's low tide. And he hears a woman crying from sort of in the stones on the edge of the sea there, kind of in the tide pools there. And he hears a woman crying and kind of crying out for help. And he turns and he looks and he sees that there is this beautiful woman kind of trapped in between these two rocks in a tide pool. And he goes over to her and says, "Oh, are you all right? Can I help you?" Of course, he's just being a perfect gentleman. And she says, "Oh, you know what? The tide went out and I'm stuck here and I have to get home. If I don't get home soon, my husband will eat my babies. I'm telling you, this is what is in the story. My husband will eat my babies." Okay. So she could have just said, "Could you help me?" And the guy probably would have helped her, but this is what she tells him. So he goes in and he kind of scoops her up, and she's just beautiful. She's a beautiful voice and, flowing hair, and black hair. And he steps into the toward the ocean, and he kind of wants to put her back in the water so she can go back. And she says, "Well," she's just terrified. So she's clinging to him, and she says, "Oh, you've got to put me in a little bit further." And so he steps in a little bit further. "Oh, just a little bit further. I can't swim from here." Meanwhile, the tide is starting to come in, and as he's going in a little bit further, some of the currents are coming in and pulling at his ankles. And the next thing he knows, she's pulling him down, and just a little further. And I love that she just, "Come on, just a couple inches more, and I'll let you go." And she latches onto him, and then they have this whole dialogue where he's trying to get away from her, and he says, I have to go home, but you should come with me. If you stay with me, you'll be able to breathe underwater. Now, we know this isn't true, right? He's going to die. And at the very last minute, he manages to wrestle himself free, and he goes home, and he recalls the story to his wife, and his wife quickly says, "Well, I told you not to walk by that beach, and I told you to stop drinking." So that was kind of the moral of the story there. My husband will eat my babies.
That was just Weird.
Yeah, it's a weird story. There's a lot of weird mermaid stories. Another one that is really haunting and beautiful is about a mermaid funeral. And so mermaids are often equated with witches, speaking of witches. And so you have sometimes stories of women who were sort of ostracized or that didn't go to church, and they were actually thought to be children or daughters of the sea, or that they were part mermaids or selkies or some kind of other enchanted creature. Mermaids were not immune to the accusations of witchcraft. And this one story is just absolutely beautiful because it's called Flory Cantillion's Funeral. And basically, Flory Cantillon is like this woman in town who was always thought to possess the second sight, who was always thought to have some magical abilities and was a healer and also a little bit weird and didn't quite fit in and wouldn't go to church and all of that kind of stuff. And when she died, they buried her just in the kirkyard, in the churchyard, just like everyone else. And then there's a fella drinking some whiskey down on the beach, and he sees out of the sea these they're not even described in the same way as mermaids, but they are these sort of white ethereal creatures that come out of the ocean. And there's someone on the cliff, and they basically like hoist her coffin down to the sea below, and these white, strange, ethereal, mermaidy creatures pull her coffin into the sea and ferry it away to its rightful burial place. And of course, no one believes him because he actually doesn't tell anyone at first after he's seen this, because as soon as he saw it, he hid. He didn't want them to see him because, the fairy folk are feared. And you certainly don't know. I mean, I don't know if you want to catch the eye of some sort of ethereal, long-armed creature that's coming out of the sea to pull a coffin down in. You probably kind of want to lay low behind the rock. And that's what the fella did in this story, and then recounted the story later. And I don't remember if they exhumed her body. I think it was so long ago they didn't. They just sort of accepted that Flory Cantillion's body was no longer in that cemetery. Flory.
Flory. We got 7 minutes left. Anastasia has a question here for you. Do you have any Hawaiian or Greek stories that you could share?
So one of the stories that pops into my head is the story of this creature that I'm going to just say the name, but I'm going to get it wrong. And I have it in my book, but I'll probably wouldn't find it in time. But it's something like the Kalansteralak or something like that. We'll see if I can look it up. And it's this creature that lives in Greece. And it kind of came to my attention when I was looking up stories about Krampus. And Krampus, if you know Krampus, just to skip ahead to the merry winter holidays, Krampus is that sort of devil-like hairy beast that steals children and puts them in a sack and runs around the village and, punishes bad children, whatever. And he's the antithesis to Saint Nicholas. And there are a lot of sort of variations of this goatee kind of strange half man, half beast creature that comes around, in particular around the holidays. And this one in Greece is actually incredibly horrifying. It has horns, glowing eyes. It's likes to take bodies from the cemetery. It likes to torture children. And it's basically one of those creatures that you're warned to not go out after, midnight during the 12 days of Christmas, because this creature is out there lurking. So that's a pretty scary one. I know quite a few stories of Greek mythology. I don't really know a lot of Hawaiian lore. I've read some Hawaiian lore, and I know some lore that's related to plants, but I don't really know a lot about Hawaiian folklore. There are some mermaid stories that I've read that are also quite menacing. As we know, mermaids are often, any kind of island nation or sea-dwelling people have mermaid equivalents, and Hawaii is not immune to them. There's quite a few stories of mermaids, especially around craters and, in inlet bays that have some pretty intense rip currents. There's some fear of mermaids in those areas. So,
makes a lot of sense. Makes a lot of sense. So thank you for that. Darius over on Twitch, who's watching, thank you, Darius. He is asking, have you ever seen the Candyman movie? People say it's too scary to watch. And he says, I've seen the trailers, and he lives in a mirror and shoots bees at people or something.
I haven't seen it, and I think we're talking about like one that's pretty recent, right? Came out fairly recently. Like, I think I saw the trailer did I see the trailer on Netflix or before a YouTube show or something like that? I definitely saw the trailer. I haven't watched it. Actually, one of the things that I need to do, now it's Friday where I am, soon to be Friday where you are. And, or is it Friday for you yet? No, not yet. You're 2 hours behind me. The Edinburgh Horror Festival, which is a week-long festival of movies and plays and performances that are all horror-based. It takes place in Edinburgh, Scotland, every year around this time of year. But last year, they went completely virtual, and this year they're hybrid. And so you can actually go on and stream a bunch of these really strange, obscure, short horror films and go along with some of the ghost tours and watch some of the live plays, and they get very creative with the genre. So that's probably my next movie date, but there's a couple of pretty scary movies. I've heard that there's this Netflix Squid Wars.
I don't understand the whole Squid Game thing.
Squid Game.
I feel so out of touch with that.
Okay, I didn't understand it either, and then someone explained it to me, and then I watched the trailer, and then I was like, oh, I should have just watched the trailer instead of judging by the cover picture, which didn't seem appealing to me because it was like pink. So the premise is, I don't know how it happens, but the premise is that there are 6 rounds of a game, and you have to survive all 6 rounds by playing the game right, whatever, and they just kill you if you don't make it. So it's a little bit of do you remember that short story, The Dangerous Game, about the guy on the island? And he brings all these people out to this island and he's actually hunting them. It's a little bit of like a spin on that, I think. I don't know. I haven't really watched it. I watched the trailer though. So
weird. Scary
movie season. There's just not enough time. I end up, writing all night and then regretting that I didn't watch all these movies.
You know what? The only time I've been really, really scared of a horror movie that affected me personally was back when, do you remember, I think it was like 1990, when Will Smith was still a rapper. Okay?
I remember that, yeah.
And they did the song Nightmare on My Street. And I think it was around A Nightmare on Elm Street Part 4. Because Part 3 had Dokken, the Dream Warriors song, as their theme song. And so, after Nightmare on Elm Street Part 4 or Part 5 or whatever it was, I used to sleep with my radio on. And I would listen to a radio station called KISM out of 92.9 FM out of Bellingham, Washington.
Ooh, nice.
And they played all sorts of tunes. And every time it wasn't KISM, was rock. So it was a Vancouver station that I was listening to that would play this song. And every night between 1:30 and 2 o'clock, I would get woken up by this song, haunting me, waking me up. It freaked me right out. I was like 17, 18 years old, and I'm trying to get to sleep, and I would wake up to this song. And it got to the point where it was happening almost nightly. And I slept for 3 months without my radio on. Because I was so scared that song was going to come back on.
I saw, for scary movies, okay, so I saw The Shining when I was like 4, and that might explain a lot.
My goodness. Oh, it explains a lot.
Yeah. It was on, and the part that I'll never forget is my mom. She's so funny. So there's all these, like, the blood rushing out of blood rushing out of the elevator, all this stuff. She covers my eyes when there's the naked lady scene. Yeah. Which turns out to be a really terrifying scene, but still, yeah.
Very true. On that note, Varla Ventura, we got her for another 30 minutes here. She's going to share some more spooky stories with us on the Halloween edition of Our Cryptid World. Find her books at any major bookstore. Then, at the bottom of the hour, I'm getting paranormal on the Dave 101. You'll hear all about it next. I literally forgot what I was going to say.
I couldn't tell.
No, I totally did. Totally butchered that one.
No, I couldn't tell. I'm getting paranormal. You left it, made it suspenseful.
Yeah.
I thought it was suspenseful. There we go.
See, we could put Varla Ventura ones up here for your YouTube channel.
Yeah. I just got to get it going.
Oh, I love this question from Darius. Do you think that Ouija boards will have to get updated with emojis and hashtags, and that for the modern ghosts?
Yeah, for the newly dead.
Yes.
For the millennial dead.
For the woke dead.
No, but I do have a funny story about that.
The woke dead?
No, the adapted Ouija board.
All right. Well, we can either tell a story, or
what do we want to do?
Or we have some questions coming up.
Oh yeah, whatever you want to do. I'm totally. Questions lead to stories, so.
Sure.
I'm good with anything.
Sure.
You know that.
I know.
I'm down for anything.
And Varla will be partying with us in the spring at the SOR Vegas get-together.
Yeah, as long as it's not when I'm in Scotland.
When are you going to Scotland?
Well, ideally, I'm going to Scotland April, like mid-April.
It'll be after that.
All right.
It'll be after that.
Yeah. I mean, I don't have... we're going to buy... I'm going with a girlfriend of mine, and we're just waiting a little bit. We're going to buy the tickets when we think it's, can actually happen. I'm just making sure the UK doesn't shut us Americans out again or anything. You just never know. Don't know. Mm-hmm. Don't know what's going to happen.
I know. You know what? I'm going to bite my tongue on that.
Oh, what were you going to say?
Oh, I was going to make
something about borders.
Yeah, sometimes it's best just to shut up.
Yeah. Feel ya.
Sometimes it's best just to shut up. So
yep.
Before I say anything, I'm just going to shut up. Swamp Dweller's back, hanging out. Hey, Knucker, how you doing? Oh, what did Aussie Rob send us? Oh, yeah. Very cute, Aussie Rob. It's got emoji Ouija board here. And then instead of goodbye, it says, "K, bye."
There's a couple of things I've been waiting for them to pop up, and like the emojis that are always the default on phones. And actually, for a while, they didn't have mermaids. Now they have mermaids. But they kind of suck for paranormal stuff. It's like there's that like winking pirate ghost or whatever, and there's like a jack-o'-lantern, and then there's a thing that's supposed to be a witch but doesn't look like a witch, and then the fairy thing, and like they need to have some more like I don't know. Just they need some darker emojis.
No. I'm going to get back to way up here. That's where we're going to start.
Who's your team? The Canucks?
Well, I grew up an Edmonton Oilers fan.
Okay. I'm just seeing that Oilers score there.
But when I started covering the Canucks, I became a fan. And it was pretty. I mean, you get to know the players, and you get to you kind of you want to see them go on a run. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I do actually know what you're saying.
Ozzy Rob, that's good ham hock tonight. Very good ham hock. Thank you. So I became a Canucks fan because I was like in the dressing room almost every day during hockey season. And that was pretty cool. And so you get to know the guys, and you feel bad when somebody gets traded or doesn't re-sign with the club, and it happens. So I cheer for both, but my heart is with the Edmonton Oilers. It always has been.
Mm-hmm. I see. Where did you grow up then? Not in British Columbia?
I grew up in a town about an hour east of Vancouver it's a city now, called Abbotsford. When I was born there was like 15,000 people in the town, and now it's like 130,000.
Oh my God.
Yeah, it's massive.
That's huge.
Yeah.
I guess that's better than, going back to your hometown and its population 10 or something.
I would still be there if it was.
Yeah. I don't know. Yeah.
All right. I want to say a big thank you tonight to Hugh, Rob, that's Ozzy, Rob, Patrick, Kat, Dirt Road, Rooted in Gorgeous Sacredness, Swamp Dweller, and Linda for the amazing super chats. It really helps out what we do on a nightly basis here on Spaced Out Radio. So thank you so much. Here comes the third hour. Don't forget Dave 101 at the bottom of the hour.
Would you like to connect with us? Head to spacedoutradio.com for all your latest show info. Now, back to Dave Scott and SOR.
Kicking off the third and final hour of Spaced Out Radio tonight. My name is Dave Scott. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us, and we appreciate everyone listening in on our terrestrial affiliates around North America, digitally on TalkStream Live, Revolution Radio, and KPNL. All of our archives are free. Just go to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do old Davey the favor. Hit that subscribe button. The Desert Clam has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Venegenis. Venegenis is your password. Use it wisely, space travelers, as the Clam sets the password each and every night right here on Spaced Out Radio. Our website is spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to Bumblefoot and reading up on Captain Shirk's SOR Newswire. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on Instagram, Spaced Out Radio Show. We continue on tonight one final time. Introduce Varla Ventura. VarlaVentura.net is her website where you can find all of her books, all of her amazing stories and work, and of course, her books can be found at any major bookstore as well. Varla, welcome back.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Another show going way too fast with you.
So fun.
Yes, our Cryptid World happens once a month here on the mighty SOR. And we love Varla around here. Of course we do. We're going to take some audience questions here because they are building up. Elle wants to know, what is your favorite scary movie?
Ooh, okay. So all-time favorite just in general is The Shining. I've liked it since I was 4. So I love The Shining. I could watch that again and again and again. Another movie that I love, and I'm pretty sure it's The Last Man on Earth, and it's that Vincent Price zombie movie. It's like really scary. But for more modern movies, it's not like that modern. But one of the movies that actually really scared me was The Orphanage. If you saw that, was a Spanish film that then was like dubbed or subtitled. And the premise is that this couple buys this old boys' home or whatever, and they have a young child themselves, and they open up an orphanage, and they just start finding all of these strange things, and it's got this really like super haunting twist, and it's a really, really scary movie if you haven't seen it. But it's not a jump scare movie. It's not a super gory movie. It's just stays with you and haunts you for the rest of your life kind of movie.
All right.
So that's right up there for me.
Flippity is asking, Varla, what is your favorite fast food restaurant story?
I don't eat fast food. I actually hate fast food restaurants, so I don't have a good fast food restaurant story. Sorry.
We're going to Taco Bell.
A bummer.
We're going to Taco Bell.
What a bummer.
Hugh is asking, got any fence post dog stories? I don't even know what that is.
I don't know what that means. I don't know what
Let's
that means.
Google it. Fence post dog stories.
Okay, you tell me. I'm not going to Google it. You just tell me.
Nothing. Not that I see.
I'm not really, does that, I don't understand that.
Oh, well. Maybe Hugh will fill us in.
This guy's just teasing you.
Nucker is asking, do Banshees eat breakfast for dinner? Always got to be one. There's always got to be one.
Yeah. I know. It's unfair.
I'm just skipping right by that one. Downshift is asking, where do you think the stairs in the woods go?
Ooh. Probably into like some sort of portal to the fairy realm. Yep. Probably a door at the top.
Would you ever go
Can't see it.
Would you ever go in?
Yeah, of course. I would totally climb up them. As long as they didn't look like they were going to like rot out from underneath me, I'd be more concerned about being injured than accidentally opening a portal. Practical things frighten me.
Alicia says, hi, Alicia.
Hi.
She goes, Dave, I'm supposed to be asleep right now, but popped on real quick to say I have the same exact story about leaving the radio on when that song came on in my sleep. I'd be frozen in bed. Very cool.
Whoa.
That is true.
Ooh, maybe there's a weird subliminal message in that story
I don't know.
or in that song. I have to listen to it again.
All right.
It's been quite many years. That's amazing.
And then she follows it up. Oh, crap. I have to go to sleep now. Thank you, Alicia.
Good night, Alicia. Thank you.
Appreciate you. Thank you. I love the audience. I do.
I know.
They are amazing. Yeah, Mondak here as we were talking hockey during the break. God saves, but Gretzky scores on the rebound.
True.
Each and every time. I love. You know my heartbreaking story about Wayne Gretzky? I was 7 years old, and at the old Pacific Coliseum in Vancouver, they didn't have the glass that went right down to the boards. There was about half an inch between the glass and the boards. And everybody's lined up. And things were a lot more lax back then. And during warm-up, there's a big lineup there of all a bunch of kids and adults putting their programs underneath the glass for Gretzky to sign. So I said to my dad, Daddy, can I go down there and see if Gretzky will sign my magazine? And he's like, sure. So I go down there. I'm the last in line. And Gretzky skipped me and kept going.
Aww.
He didn't see me. The other guy behind me, he was kind of positioned with his shoulders kind of blocking me.
Aww.
And he didn't see me. And then when I interviewed Wayne Gretzky in 2006, I froze.
Oh no.
Yeah.
You didn't tell him that story about how he ignored you?
No, I didn't say that, but he looked at me like I wasn't ready for my question. I had my question in my head, and he looked right at me, and I'm only like maybe 7 inches away from him, and he looks at me, and I just froze.
Oh. Oh.
And I just went, I got nothing. Next. Right? And I never froze before as a reporter, but it was Gretzky.
Wow.
Gretzky.
That's intimidating.
Yeah.
Ah,
all right.
A hero. Yep.
Absolutely. Kaiju is asking, what is the creepiest Bigfoot encounter you've heard?
Well, you've got probably the more scary Bigfoot encounters. A lot of the ones I've heard have been listening to your show, actually, Dave. So I have a cousin that lives in California, and both he and his son have told me a couple different stories. They've had a Bigfoot. They like to fish, so they get up like really early, and they live in this pretty rural part of Northern California. And they also sometimes go up to Oregon to fish, in various like small rivers. So they're like not people. Like they like to live in a, away from a city. They have like kind of their own farm and horses and things like that. So they don't, they like to go into, like, to them, ideal is not running into another person if you're in the woods, right? So I think that's, for a lot of us, probably the case, right? But anyway, so they've told me twice when camping in the forest in southern Oregon, that they were woken up by this like growling sound. They thought maybe it was like a bear or something. And when they got out of the tent, and at this point, he's probably like a young teenager at the point when his dad was actually taking him up to camp. And they totally saw a Bigfoot like running from their camp. And then another story he told me, this was just a couple summers ago when I saw him, the son was telling me, like my second cousin was telling me about one actually on their property in Northern California that he saw more than once and that his dad had seen on separate occasions. So I think probably those were just a little bit more scary for me, or it's scary with the caveat, but only because I felt like they were, it was a little bit dangerous for them, and I love them, so I didn't want anything to happen to them. So that kind of like made my heart race if that was happening more frequently, So yeah.
Very nice. All right. Back to Hugh, who was asking about the fence post dogs. It was also called the black dog that had glowing red eyes.
Oh, okay. So there's a number of black dog stories that I do know. There's a black dog that actually I was interviewing this woman who runs a paranormal investigation group in Alaska, and she's pretty amazing. And she told the story about this particular mine where they would always see a black dog with glowing red eyes. When I was in Ireland, 20 years ago when I was in Ireland, I was on this small island off the coast of Galway and had met this, like one of the only other non-locals, had met this, it was a couple people at a bar, and the gentleman was telling the story about the black dog of the sea that appeared right on that very beach, and that you shouldn't go down there at night because the black dog at the sea actually puts a curse on you and leads to your death. So there's a lot of I don't know if that's what you're asking about, but there's quite a few stories along those lines of black dogs that are spotted and usually kind of portend some kind of ill fortune or death. So they can be kind of considered harbingers of the of death, kind of like a banshee.
You know what though? Some of the dogman encounters that we have heard from as well have also been seen with glowing red eyes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Actually, there's a bunch of old there's there's basically old dogman stories. I have some of them in my book, and there are a number of accounts of these like, there's actually, you have the friend in Wales. He probably knows a few of those stories, because in Welsh mythology there is often a black dog seen at a crossroads, and it would have glowing red eyes, and it has a particular name. And so I think that's really common. And again, kind of goes back to what I was saying earlier in the show about like the similarities in stories over generations, or I shouldn't say stories, but like of sightings of things over generations and encounters. And we're talking about like, you know, over hundreds of years, but they're described in much the same way, but completely unrelated. And are we describing the same thing and it's just been around for a really long time and been doing the same thing? Or, I mean, there's people who believe all kinds of things about how we got here, and you know, who put the who put the pyramids in Egypt and all of that kind of stuff. So,
well, this leads to Nikki's question. You ever heard of demon dogs?
So I think they're kind of the same thing a lot. Like usually the like, I've never heard a story of a black, a glowing eyed dog ever being like a good sign. It's always a sign of death or bad luck, or some kind of like, you know, accident is going to take place on that intersection, or it's guarding something and it's a warning to not go in, such as the story that the woman was telling me about the caves in Alaska. So I guess in that way, like, they all kind of have that implication that they're a bit demonic, right? Or maybe not a bit, but extremely demonic, or just kind of dark entities, not necessarily, you know, like Clifford the Big Red Dog or something.
What about the Hounds of Hell?
Ooh, the Hounds of Hell. Well, you know, they're rooted in Greek mythology as well, basically guarding the gates and keeping people who didn't belong in the underworld from coming in there, and also keeping people in the underworld from coming out. And it was actually a way of protecting, you know, mortals, and keeping people from, you know, untimely death in a way. And I think that there's a guardian element to that for sure.
Where did that come from, though? That story.
The Hounds of Hell. That's in Greek mythology. I mean, I don't know of the like most modern version, but there's a multi-headed dog in Greek mythology that guards the gates to hell, I believe. So, but you see, it wasn't hell. It was the dark underworld, because hell is a Christian concept. So I would assume then, by that definition, that the dogs of hell are a Christian invention around the same time that witches were being burned. So I would say that it probably is a manipulation of another story or another kind of creature that became sort of put in that black and white heaven and hell light.
Still spooky.
Still totally freaky. Still don't want to run into them at the crossroads, whatever you want to call them. Yeah,
no.
You don't want them to bite your hands.
No. You know what I would love to see investigated more, and I wish more musicians and athletes would come out about their encounters. Like, we have Hollywood celebrities that'll come out, but I would love to see more musicians and encounters from all their stories, from riding buses on the highways across North America.
Right? Late at night.
Oh, yeah. I would love to see that.
Not only that, but theaters. So many theaters. I've many of the times that I've gone on ghost tours, or even had a few incidents, have been in old theaters. And you always have, like, you know, they're in there for sound checks, so they're in there before, like, you know, the mass crowds, and there's probably, you know, they're there later. There's always like the crew who's breaking stuff down. You know, I think there's a lot of stories about like venues and stuff too. I know here in Minneapolis, First Avenue is the most famous rock venue in town, and that's supposed to be haunted. In the basement, in the bathrooms, several different entities are supposed to be there.
No kidding. I would just love to be able to hear some of those stories. I think it would be phenomenal. I really do think it would be phenomenal learning about some of those.
Yeah, I agree. I think that'd be interesting.
All right. Kaiju is asking, Varla, have you ever heard about any dinosaur cryptids other than the ones in the Congo?
No, not really. I think that there's some creatures that might kind of fit description wise. They maybe, like we all are speculating about the things like Loch Ness, right? Being a dinosaur coming from, that era somehow, miraculously surviving the Big Bang. But no, not really. I mean, there's things though that we discover, right? Like there's creatures that come out of the sea every day that look like some kind of ancient drawing or some kind of strange thing that was depicted on maps, and it might only be 10 inches wide and not 10 feet, but it still has that that appearance. And in particular in the ocean, there's, massive eels and those terrifying Pacific octopus that actually are really aggressive and or the squids, the Pacific squids, they're the Humboldt squids. They're really aggressive. I don't know if they come as far north as the Vancouver area, but they've been known to attack fishing boats and stuff. So that has nothing to do with dinosaurs. Just where my mind
just
went.
One of those things.
It's one of those things where something that we've, kind of poo-pooed as myth, is like, oh, well, that's back when people thought the earth was flat too. And then evidence comes out that there is actually, a giant kraken-like creature. It just, is smaller than how it was hundreds of years ago or whatever. I don't know.
Very interesting. Very interesting. We've got 3.5 minutes here before we got to say goodnight to you. And Merle is saying Merle to you.
Right on, Merle. Right on, Merle.
We love Merle around here.
Yeah.
What are some of your Halloween traditions that you like to do?
Well, I always do a spell on Halloween, and it's usually a candle spell, and I actually love to just use a jack-o'-lantern as the place to keep it because it's a safe place, especially because, if you've ever heard the idea that when you light a candle for a spell, you should really let it burn all the way down. And so if you want to go out trick-or-treating, but you got this spell in your yard, it's usually pretty safe to have it in the pumpkin. And then typically a bonfire, and part of the ritual around that is usually burning some herbs and then sort of wishes for the new year, because witches actually look at this as the witch's new year. And so I kind of treat it like that. I'm not a Wiccan. Just kind of more of a witchy, pagany, atheist, supernaturalist, crazy person who loves Halloween. So I always have a bonfire, always do some kind of candle spell, always get dressed up and go trick-or-treating with my son, which is great. I don't know how many more years I'm going to be able to get away with that, but that's been a real joy for the past 10 years being able to do that. And that's mostly it. Sometimes we have a party, sometimes it just kind of depends on the year and who's around and what day it falls on. But of course I celebrate Halloween for all year round. So for me, it's just kind of a little more forward facing of the skeletons and, kind of can put out some of my favorite things. And then I get to see those things all around in the world too. So it's a joyful time.
1 minute left. Tell everybody where they can find your books.
VarlaVentura.net is where you will find everything going on about me. You will see the store there where you can buy the Varla Ventura hat as modeled by Dave Scott tonight. If you're watching the video portion of this show, yeah. And the mugs and all of that stuff with the cool logo. And you can buy my books there. You can get my books wherever you buy books. Bookshop.org supports local independent bookstores near you. You can get them on Amazon, et cetera, et cetera. And yeah, just try and keep people posted about my stuff there. And also, I will just make a plug. If you can go to my website, you can subscribe to my newsletter, which I have completely neglected and which I will be reinstating. So you just kind of scroll down to the bottom. You can put your email in there. I'm not going to send you constant emails. And, at this point, I'm aiming for one a month. But they'll be full of cool things and stories and happenings and things like that. It should be a pretty creative and interesting. So I'm hoping to reinstate that soon.
Well, Varla, it's always a pleasure to have you here.
Thank you so
on
much,
Spaced
Dave.
Out Radio. We love you.
Love you.
Coming up next, it's the Dave 101. Paranormal teams, hoarding locations. Let's get into it next. Varla Ventura, everybody.
Thank you.
Varla Ventura.
Fun. Yeah. Hey, that's a good topic that you're going to talk about. I'll clock out here and hop on over to the YouTube because I saw your thought of the Dave about that.
Yeah.
And I'm curious to hear the rest of your thoughts.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
You can hang out here if you want.
I'm gonna go take a little break and stuff, but I'll hop back on the chat over there.
Sure.
Yeah, but I think my opinion of that is that it's lame. And as soon as somebody makes anything exclusive, it makes me want to tear it down.
You're a rebel that way. You are a rebel that way.
Yeah, I do not, might surprise you, I do not belong to my local country club.
All right, beautiful. You take care.
Thank you. Thank you, Dave.
We love you here, and we'll talk to you soon, okay?
All right. Sounds good. Thanks so much.
All right, take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
All right, Varla Ventura, everybody. How much do we love her? We love her. Excuse me. Excuse me. Let's hope my voice holds out here, because I got a lot I want to say on this. A lot. Big Willie, new wrench. There is going to be a major announcement next week on Spaced Out Radio. I'm very excited about this. It's going to change a big dynamic of what we do. And the people who are going to benefit the most from this are you, the listeners. So, stick with it. Next week I'll have a big announcement. And I think all of you guys are going to be absolutely happy and excited about what we are going to be doing. Thank you, Jonathan. Jonathan Davies, by the way, is our guest tomorrow night. The man who knows everything. That's all I'm going to say. The man who knows everything. Pac Woman on Twitch. How are you? Nice to see you again. So wait till we put a Willie Beard t-shirt on our store. Remember, you can get your Merle swag. Merle's got swag. The Merly bird gets the worm. I only drink Merlot. Yep. When I dance, I only dance Merlesque. Merle me up, buttercup, don't break my heart. Hey, B. Hoff, how you doing? My favorite wizard is Merlin. That's all I got. I can hear my fan buzzing in the background. It's warm in here tonight. Probably because I have a hoodie on. It might have something to do with it. All right, everyone. We got 5 seconds. Let's do this thing. I'm ready. Hi, applesauce. We've rounded third. We're heading for home tonight on Spaced Out Radio. My name is Dave Scott. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us. We really do appreciate earning your listening ears. Want to remind you that if you've missed most of this show or others, check out our free archives by going to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do me the favor, hit that subscribe button. Follow us on Twitter @Spaced Out Radio and on Instagram, Spaced Out Radio Show. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read up on Shirky Poo's Newswire, and check out our swag as well. Here comes the Dave 101.
It's time for Dave 101.
Dear paranormal enthusiasts, I'm probably going to upset you tonight because I believe there is a real travesty that is starting to happen over the last couple years in the paranormal world. As paranormal teams have jumped up everywhere across North America and the world, we've seen a lot of greed start to happen in the paranormal field. How can there be greed in the paranormal field? Well, we're going to break it down for you. There are a number of teams out there who are hoarding locations, getting companies to sign these contracts, companies, businesses, museums, so that they are the only paranormal team who can investigate. Now, normally I wouldn't have an issue with something like this, because if you're actually conducting scientific investigation of the paranormal, which literally 98% of the paranormal field isn't, then it would be okay. Why? Because what you're trying to do is you're trying to lock down a location so that way you can continually investigate there to see if you can get any commonalities with the evidence. And you don't want anybody else to tamper with the building the people, the ghosts. A lot of businesses I can also see wanting maybe one team to investigate because they don't want a bunch of reckless hoodlums running around with paranormal gear who are out there to make themselves look good. Look, we have a place here in British Columbia, an old tuberculosis hospital that a number of years ago allowed a television show to go in there. They tore the place up, they wrecked it, and no longer are people allowed to investigate the paranormal there, which is too bad. So I can understand the idea that some businesses would like one team and one team only. However, this is what pisses me off about the paranormal. There is so much ego in this field right now. Much like UFOs, much like cryptids, there's egos everywhere when you don't have a rule book. To lock down locations for the sake of ego, that no other team can actually get in there and investigate, goes absolutely against anything that could be potentially scientific. You know, I give the paranormal a hard time on this show over the years. Why? Because it's a joke for the most part. It really is. We have the team skeptic who always has to pose on the website with their arms crossed. What the hell does a paranormal team need a skeptic for? Come on. If you can't be skeptic enough to control what is right and what is wrong, you're just enjoying the ghost hunt. That's all you're doing. Number two, when you lock down a location, you could potentially be skipping out and missing out on some major evidence that could share and be shared with other teams. Because if the other teams are getting exactly what you are, that is good for the field. That is very good for the field. Because what you are doing now is you are building a case that there is commonality that is happening within the evidence. But no, it's always about ego in the paranormal field. It always is. It's rarely about anything else because teams split up over the years and one person doesn't like another, or somebody wants to be the biggest and the best in whatever state or province they are, and they want to be the team of the decade, the century, whatever it may be. It's ego. Why is it ego? Because we all want to be the best at something. We all want to have those bragging rights. When there are no rules and you're playing by your own, you're setting the tone. You want to lock down those locations. You want to make sure that nobody can get in there outside of you. But it doesn't really work that way because most of the contracts that are actually signed, if you read them, and I've seen a couple over the years, they wouldn't hold up in a court of law at all. It's a scare tactic by many paranormal teams out there that they are using in order to scare the businesses. Now, if you let in another team, we have the right to sue you, potentially. Even though you know it'll never get to that. I'm not a fan of it. Okay, we always hear the paranormal people crying about, we need paranormal unity. We need cohesiveness. We need people to work together. But a lot of these people only preach that when the paranormal unity goes by what they stand for. Locking down locations, whether it's a museum, a haunted house, a historical location, a restaurant, a movie theater, whatever it may be, is absolutely childish. It's childish to the paranormal field. It's disrespectful to your other investigators who are out there maybe on other teams. And it causes a lot of anguish for absolutely no reason unless it's one thing, once again. Ego. So why have the ego? 98% of the paranormal teams out there are out there for an adventure. They are out there to get spooked. They are out there to have a good time because going ghost hunting is their way of spending a great weekend together, much like some people mountain bike, some people hike, some people go to the bars and restaurants, some people go to hockey games or football games. Paranormal happens to be their thing, and that's okay. Everybody's allowed a really cool hobby, whether others agree with it or not. But the problem that we have in the paranormal is we have all of these teams out there, and you can check them out online. All you got to do is use Google and see how many of them use the word science. It is the most misused word in the entire paranormal genre, from ghost investigation to UFOs to cryptids like Bigfoot and Sasquatch and Dogman in between. This is a problem that we have in this field, because 98% of the people out there investigating have not conducted a scientific experiment literally since high school. It's degrading. It's unfair. It's not good for the paranormal population. We have to do better. We really do. Who cares about the story? Who cares about the evidence? Who cares about what's truly going on? Because most people are there for themselves. Most paranormal teams are there to see what they get. They want to walk around with their fancy gear. They want to walk around in their team t-shirts and hoodies, which is great. It's fine. However, what are they doing scientifically to prove or disprove the paranormal? Most scientific experimentations have a process. You have a hypothesis, and it goes right down to conclusion. And then after that conclusion, you have usually a peer review. A peer review to look over your evidence, to look over your studies, to look over your reports, to see what you have captured. But paranormal teams don't do that. They don't do it at all. Why do they not do that? It's simple. They don't know how. They don't have a team scientist. They don't have anything going but ego. It is all ego-driven. So when you see a location locked down that you cannot attend because of some faux contract, you're doing more to hurt the field than you are helping it. Now, once again, I want to preface, there are businesses and museums out there who don't want every Tom, Dick, and Harry ghost hunter running into their buildings. They don't. And that's fine. That is the building's choice, the museum's choice, the restaurant's choice. That's fine and dandy. But if you are actively going to locations to try and lock them down, and the only reason why you are locking them down is to screw other paranormal teams, shame on you. Everybody is allowed to have fun in this, because there are very few out there trying to solve the riddles that the paranormal actually holds. Is there life after death? Can we solve crimes? Are these spirits walking among us, or are they in a different dimension? These are the questions we need to answer. These are the questions that we're not answering because we're too busy running around looking for a quick rush of being scared and spooked. So why do we do it? Well, we're thrill seekers. There's nothing wrong with ghost hunting. It's fun. I've done it numerous times, and I've enjoyed it each and every time that I have. But am I a paranormal investigator? Not even close. I am nowhere close to where Brandon Alvis or Mustafa Gadalari are. I am nowhere close to having the knowledge of a Ross Allison or a David Weatherly or a Timothy Renner. I'm nowhere close to getting a television show, nor would I want one with a face for radio. But the big thing about it is, there are a lot of wannabes out there who want that opportunity, who know that that television show is not coming, that pilot is not coming. So what can they do to flex their muscles? They can lock down locations with fake contracts. And it's disgusting that the paranormal world is coming to that. That there are individuals out there so pompous that they would come to your haunted location and say, you know what? We got some goods here. We don't want anybody to tamper with it. So just sign right here. That way it makes us exclusive for you and we're going to treat you right. It's ghost hunting. Sure, it may be your passion. Sure, it may be everything you want to do in life and you would pray and give anything to do it full time. Doing it by screwing other teams, though, is not the way to go. It really isn't. Because if you screw up, you're screwing that location for every other team who wants to do it right. There's a team here in British Columbia who actually painted over a evil drawing in a museum without the museum's permission because the psychic of the team felt it was necessary to paint over it. They actually brought a can of paint to paint over potential paranormal evidence because the museum curators had no idea how this evil drawing had ended up on the walls. Who was this paranormal team to make that decision for the museum? The museum ended up booting them out. They're not allowed back there. That museum could have very well said, nope, we're not taking any more paranormal teams because of the way this one acted. But they aren't. They're more picky now. That is how much of a loose cannon the paranormal field is. And you have an opportunity to ruin it for other teams. How come you don't see the big stars? Whether it's Dustin Pari, whether it's Jason Hawes, whether it's, once again, Brandon Alvis, Mustafa Gadalari, Dave Schrader, all right? Any of the big name stars. You don't see them locking down locations. You don't see them saying, hey, ABC Paranormal, you're not allowed here. You don't because they respect the field. And locking down locations is one way to show that you have no respect for the field or your fellow ghost hunters who want to have fun, just like you. That's your Dave 101. The news is always changing. Shukri Poo's got us all set up here. Let's do this thing. Well, one nurse's battle against the invisible enemy that forced her to break wind. Yep, the U.S. often gets a bad rap when it comes to frivolous lawsuits. However, this case proves that suing people for ridiculous reasons isn't an exclusively American phenomenon anymore. In the UK, a nurse lost the lawsuit she filed against the National Health Service hospital that let her go in December 2019. Xanda Sampson sued the Ealing Hospital in London, claiming the medical institution wrongfully dismissed her. Sampson complained that the hospital had subjected her to ideomotor phenomena That's a supposed hypnotic concept that forces the subject to perform small involuntary movements. Yep, Seances claim the hospital used low-frequency sound waves to possess her. Yeah. Supposedly, the evil people in charge of the institution attacked her private parts too, and forced her to fart publicly, among other things. Yep. She refused a psychiatric evaluation, by the way. There are plenty of weird jobs around the world, and, New Zealand actually had an official wizard. The key word there being had. Yeah, the country has told its state magician thank you and good luck after 23 years of faithful service. The Wizard of New Zealand, also sometimes called Ian Brackenbury Channel, signed a contract with the city of Christchurch in 1998. Since then, he cast spells and entertained both locals and tourists for an annual paycheck of $16,000. The council met with the wizard and sent him a letter thanking him for his services to Christchurch over the past decades and informing him that they were bringing a formal contractual arrangement to a close. It's terrible. Terrible. All right. Moving on. Careful of the monkeys in India. A monkey in India literally went ape by killing a man. How? He threw a brick at the guy. The random attack took place in central Delhi's Nabi Karim. Mohammed Kurbad, just 30 years old, sold bags at a shop in the area and was on his way to buy materials when he was hit by a brick thrown by a monkey. The brick was thrown by the monkey from a second floor of a nearby building. Kurbad sustained a severe injury and collapsed. He was rushed to hospital where he was declared dead. During their investigation, police discovered the brick belonged to a homeowner who kept 2 stones on top of his water tank to stop monkeys from opening it. Yep, monkeys weren't having any of that. For the first time in history, travelers had a reason to applaud checked baggage fees. Why? Christy and Jared Owens were checking their baggage at Lubbock Preston Smith International Airport in Texas for a trip to Vegas. When they weighed their bags, it was overweight. How did this happen? As they were going to check it in for a fee? Well, they opened up their bag to figure out what was going on here. And the problem was they found Icky, their 5-pound rescue chihuahua, who decided to go on the trip with them. He was hiding inside of one of Jared's cowboy boots. Yeah, the couple was naturally stunned. It was surreal, and they are seeing their dog in the suitcase. The Owens were mortified, and they were worried that the airline staff would think that they hid their dog on purpose, but when everybody listened up, well, they realized that it was just a boo-boo. And finally, let's get to it. A group of retired military men told reporters this past Tuesday about disturbing incidents involving America's nuclear missile bases and UFOs, led by Robert Salas at the National Press Club in Washington, D.C. The meeting told members who attended about UFOs flying over nuclear missile bases where unknown objects or craft intruded into restricted airspace, hovered over ICBM silos, and somehow disabled weapons. Yes, the aliens are real. Yes, this story has been known for 40-plus years. And finally, people are paying attention. Big thank you to Captain Shirky Poo for the news of the day. Big thank you to everybody listening in to Dave 101. And, of course, to Varla Ventura for another amazing radio show. We got Mr. Ron Bumblefoot Thal rocking in the background with Little Brother is Watching. Bumblefoot is the official music of Spaced Out Radio, rocking us in and out of every single show. Get your horns up for the guitar god himself. Special thanks to everybody listening in at home, at work, in your cars, wherever you may be. Thank you to everyone in our chat rooms tonight, YouTube, Twitch, LGAP, Facebook, Revolution Radio, Spreaker, and on Twitter at hashtag Spaced Out Radio.
I know you're out there somewhere.
Remember, this show is copyright by Spaced Out Radio and SOR Media Ventures Limited. Thank you so much for choosing to share your evening with us, because together, my friends,
We're watching.
We own the night. Mr. Bumblefoot, we need a favor. We need you to take us home. Yes, the Woo Train has docked for the night. But soon, my friends, we shall ride again. Your seats are always available. Your tickets never expire. And if you want to bring a friend, we've got room for them too. Good night.